Mantis. Mantis actually got her start in comics when she used her abilities to reform swordsman or Jacques Duquesne, which actually got her into the Avengers. Mantis's powers and abilities are more than what you may have gathered from her film counterpart. Mantis has complete control over her entire body, which in turn gives her peak human agility, the ability to accelerate healing through force of will, and an empathic nature enabling her to communicate telepathically with and sense the emotions of others as psychic vibrations. She can also control her heart and respiratory rate and blood flow as well. Her mastery of the Kotati priest's martial arts, which focuses on the manipulation of nerve endings and pressure points, has enabled her to knock out beings as powerful as Thor, and her telepathic and empathic abilities are improved upon thanks to the two little antennae that she has coming out of her head. But it doesn't stop there though. Mantis also gained abilities when she merged with the Kotati, such as being able to communicate with both plants and animals, and survive in space in a physically solid energy form. She can transfer herself from plant life to plant life across interstellar distances or even dimensions, creating a new body from the plant life wherever she ends up. She can transmit and receive telepathic impressions, she has precognitive powers, and more recently she can fire powerful pyrokinetic energy blasts from energy fields, communicate directly with cosmic beings such as eternity and death, and completely control her personal energies as well as her physical form. I don't want to keep talking about it anymore. Number 9. Hawkeye. Clint Barton is essentially just a regular human man, but despite that, and likely because of his abilities and talents, he is considered a power level 4 according to Nick Fury's intel, whatever that means. Those aforementioned abilities include being a master of archery in the use of regular bows, longbows, compound bows, and crossbows, with basically perfect accuracy, able to fire multiple arrows at a single target in just a few seconds, hitting multiple targets in a few quick strokes, and directly hitting small targets at the greatest of distances. But he now also has near perfect precision with any aimed or thrown weapon. He is at the peak level of human eyesight possible, is in peak athletic human condition with peak strength, endurance, and reflexes. He's an expert acrobat, tactician, and master martial artist, but just listing off his abilities isn't going to give you a proper understanding of how cool Hawkeye is. So what has he done? In Avengers Volume 3 number 14, Hawkeye was cornered by 17 marksmen and took them all down without taking a single life. And in Hawkeye Volume 4 number 1, Clint ran into a wanted criminal in a bar and took him down silently, somehow fracturing his neck with a deck of cards. I don't know. Number 8. Weapon H. Clayton Cortez is actually a newer addition to the Marvel landscape, but in my opinion, he is pretty cool. Clayton was a Marine who, after defecting, was subjected to Weapon X's H Division, which was basically asking the question, what would happen if we mixed the Hulk and Wolverine and made them cyborgs? H-Alpha, which was Clayton's designation, was different though. He retained more of his brain than the other subjects, and he was also not loyal to Director Stryker's cause. So, when this guy popped out of his incubation chamber, it didn't go too well for his creators. Are we surprised though? This Hulk-Wolverine hybrid has an adamantium bonded skeleton, which still allows him to transform from human form to Hulk-out form. And yes, he has an almost limitless level of strength, and the insane level of durability afforded to the Hulk, on top of the adamantium skeleton. And we haven't even got to the adamantium bone claws and studs, regenerative healing factor, and enhanced senses. The one who created him, Dr. Alba, suggested that Weapon H could actually end the life of every living being on this earth. That's pretty insane.
Number 7. Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman is another character who sometimes gets shafted in the comics, and she is a character who often gets compared to her seeming male counterpart, Spider-Man. Although truth be told, in canon continuity, Spider-Woman actually is older than Peter, and therefore in comic books history anyways, she was actually Spider-Woman before Peter was Spider-Man. She's canonically older, so I mean, she has a kid and everything. Something Peter has never really even been allowed to do permanently as a character, settle down, have kids, and grow up, all that good stuff. Although I would say that the fun of Jessica Drew is that she might be adulting really hard, but she never really fully grows up. She's always fun, sassy, and still figuring out so much of her life as she goes through it. To me, she's always been not only fun and badass, but also a relatable character, which is why I feel like she deserves to be featured more and get more respect from Marvel writers and fans alike, hence why she's on this list. Number 6. Black Black Knight. Honestly, probably one of the most underappreciated heroes we have as leader of the Avengers is the Black Knight. That's right, he was a leader of the Avengers, everyone. The Black Knight is a character who feels like lately he has faded into obscurity somewhat. I thought maybe with Kit Harington, made famous for his role as reluctant hero Jon Snow in the series Game of Thrones, playing Dane Whitman in the Eternals movie, we might actually see a resurgence of this character in the comics, and I was hyped for that, bolstered by his MCU appearance. However, while Dane's role as the Black Knight was teased at the end of the film with the appearance of his ancestral cursed sword, the Ebony Blade, we have yet to hear anything about the development of his announced series, and even Harington himself says he's basically in the dark on what Marvel's plans might be involving this character. So it seems like we might have to wait a bit longer for Black Knight to get the respect he so deserves from modern day fans, but hopefully that's coming at some point soon. Like, come on, Marvel, give me the Black Knight series, give me something, I want it. I feel like it could be cool and it would be very different. Number 5. Vision. Vision hasn't really had a major focus on him in some time. I love that he agreed to join up with Carol's Avengers, and as such is getting more time on the Avengers team in the present day, where he can once more be in the spotlight. But I do feel like there was a little period in there where Vision wasn't really doing much of anything. Vision might seem like a boring character devoid of personality because he's an android, but I would argue that at times he is maybe more human than the rest of his teammates. There are moments in the comics where for me he reminds me of another android that I know and love, Data from Star Trek. Often it is his humanity that seems to motivate him, and also seems to be something that Viz struggles with as well, both in realizing its existence within himself and in accepting that human part of himself. Like, I mean, you gotta realize it before you can accept it, but even when I feel like he's kinda like, oh, maybe that's what's going on, I feel like he's not willing to fully embrace his humanity. I know he's an android, but sometimes he's just some really human stuff, guys. Number 4. She-Hulk. She-Hulk recently just had her own solo series, which as far as I've read thus far is amazing, by the way. I haven't finished it yet, but yeah. That series unfortunately just ended, and honestly it bums me out. She-Hulk is Jennifer Walters, who contrary to some very loud opinions, is not just a gender-swapped version of the Hulk. She is her own character in her own right, being Bruce Banner's cousin, who he came to shortly after his transformation into the Hulk, kinda seeking some help from Jen. However, during his visit, Jen was attacked by criminals who were worried that she, as a lawyer, was going to take down their boss. A very real threat, since Jen is actually a pretty great criminal lawyer, or was so at the time anyways. Now she's more into superhero lawyering, but still. After this attack on her life and Bruce being forced into giving her an emergency blood transfusion to save it, Jen Walters was forever changed into the sometimes monster, mostly hero, She-Hulk. She-Hulk has had a tumultuous path throughout the comics, having her highs and her lows. She has had long runs and short runs, and I'm kinda disappointed she isn't doing more these days, especially considering she also just got her own Disney Plus series, so you'd think that would help to give her character a comic book boost, but not really apparently. Her recent series didn't even make it to 20 issues sadly, and like I said, it honestly was great. I'm not fully up to date, but trust me, the issues I've read are really good. You should check it out. It's like classic She-Hulk. It felt so like original She-Hulk times. Ugh, so good. Number 3. Captain Marvel. I would argue that in a way, Carol is only recently starting to get her due. Captain Marvel has been and always will be one of the strongest Avengers around when it comes to the team. She is a cosmic powerhouse who has overcome a ton of adversity, but when it comes to her getting the respect that she deserves, she has had honestly a rough past. There was the whole thing with Marcus Immortus, see Avengers 197 through 200 for that fiasco, and then there was Civil War II, which saw Carol deal with some major character issues regarding how she was presented and written at that time. She became the villain of the story that should have honestly been equal in terms of which Avenger fans sided with, like in Civil War I. However, that isn't how Civil War II went down. Lately, however, Captain Marvel is finally getting the respect she deserves, as she has recently become the leader of the Avengers as we move into this new Avengers era. I am excited to see this kind of development happening for Carol, who has always been a strong and intelligent character who understands how to best utilize and motivate a team. So see her in that leadership role, it's perfect for me. Number 2. Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel has barely made any appearances recently in the comics, despite being one of the greatest powerhouses that we've ever seen. It's downright rude if you ask me. If I'm missing something amazing that happened with him lately as well, let me know, but I don't think he's really even been around since the end of the Defenders Beyond series. Before that, he appeared in Doctor Doom series, I believe, but my question is, when are we getting a Blue Marvel series? Huh? Marvel? Give us that Blue Marvel series right now, I want to read it. While Blue Marvel has not been a member of the main Avengers roster, which honestly also seems insane to me, he has been a member of the Mighty Avengers, which is why I'm including him on this list. And also because, come on, Marvel, give us a solo series, do it. Number 1. Scarlet Witch. Only now is Scarlet Witch Wanda Maximoff starting to get the story she has so long deserved. For years, Scarlet Witch was epically burdened by her past and haunted by all of her misdeeds and mistakes she had made along the way. M-Day has to have been one of the worst moments in mutant history, and it's all kinda cause of Wanda. M-Day happened in 2005 in the comics as a result of Scarlet Witch striking out at mutant kind after the events of House of M, where she attempted to create a reality where many heroes were happy. Fortunately, she is now finally moving to a place of healing, refusing to be defined by her past while running a magic shop in Lockkill, New York, with the help of MCU's Darcy, appearing in the comics for the first time. Here, finally, Wanda refused to let her past define her present self. Yes, finally, it's only taken us since 2005. It's taken so long to get to this point, but we're finally here. Ugh. Poor Wanda. Number 10. Hellstrom. Hellstrom is Damon Hellstrom, also sometimes going by the name Damon Hellstorm, the son of Satan. His initial appearance in Marvel Comics was shrouded in controversy due to him being marked as, well, you know, the son of the devil. But in recent years, this all died down with the ultimate dissolution of the Comic Code Authority, which made moral judgment calls on what subject matter could be covered or touched upon, even in comics, a lot less controversial, let's just say, for the most part. Damon's father might not actually be the devil, as a few in Marvel Comics have made claims to this title. But either way, he still has become the ruler of at least a hell dimension, thanks to his birthright. While Damon is not known for appearing on the main Avengers team, he is known for being married to a fellow Avenger in the past, Hellcat, and has been a member of the Savage Avengers, which is why I'm counting him here. Although, lately, I feel like he's been a little less hero-y in the comics. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button? Do it, it's good for you. You know what people say? An apple a day keeps the doctor away, a like a day keeps me at bay from telling you all of that all the time. Number 9. Hellcat. We don't talk about Patsy Walker Hellcat that often on Top 10 Nerd, but lately, I don't know, I've just been in kinda like a Hellcat kind of mood, I guess. Hellcat is definitely a hero who's overlooked on the Avengers roster, and honestly, her history has granted her some pretty unique and fun powers. I had fun looking back into Hellcat's past to be like, oh yeah, she has all these cool things. She has some magical abilities, including the ability to basically like dodge magic and see through illusions, making her hard to target for any magic users. She even can tap into a demonic side of herself, calling upon demonic energy to give her a boost in certain realms and in certain instances. It's conditional, but still is pretty cool. Number 8. Hawkeye. Hawkeye is often thought of as just being a guy with some arrows who has really good aim. Kinda is that. But the fact that he's one of the few human members of the Avengers who doesn't have any superpowers per se, other than maybe like really enhanced eyesight, but not superpowered, just like abnormally good in ways that sometimes don't make sense, is exactly why he deserves more. More respect, more love, more admiration from us all. Hawkeye's Clint Barton doesn't have powers to rely on, and he still manages to keep up with the rest of his teammates. That's pretty awesome, I gotta say. I wasn't always a Clint fan, but I like Clint Barton, he's pretty cool.
Number 7. Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is one of, if not the greatest martial artist on Earth. He was trained from birth to become the ultimate warrior. He can take on multiple opponents at once and can even defeat people much more superhumanly powerful than he is. In fact, in the White Hot Room, when the Phoenix organized a tournament to pick who would be the new host, the only reason that Shang-Chi lost was because he refused to take someone's life, having him expelled from that tournament. He is particularly skilled in Chinese martial arts, but his skill branches out to many other forms of martial arts as well. In one case, he even worked with Spider-Man to create a new martial art based on Peter's powers. Shang-Chi also is able to manipulate Chi energy, which he can use to enhance his strength and durability, and can even detect others based on their energy, like he did when he detected a psionically masked Jean Grey. But Shang-Chi gets a much more significant boost of power when he's using the 10 rings. He can use those rings as projectiles, manipulate their size, and use them to levitate or even fly. The rings grant the martial master superhuman strength, durability, speed, and stamina, and he can even manipulate the energies from the rings to do many other things as well. And then, just to top it all off, thanks to the other side of his heritage, Shang-Chi inherited his mother's psionic abilities to communicate with his blood relatives, even the deceased ones. Freaky. Number 6. Jack of Hearts. Jonathan Hart is a hero you may not have heard of, or maybe you have, I don't know. What I do know is that Jack Hart was the son of a brilliant scientist, a scientist that created the ridiculously efficient liquid sci-fi fuel called Zero Fluid. In a tragic comic book backstory, that fluid was exposed to Jack and it gave him his awesome but difficult to control abilities. Importantly, he was also part alien, with his mother hailing from the Contraxian race. Now, due to his cellular mutation that took place after his Zero Fluid exposure, Jonathan Hart is now able to produce pink concussive energy beams and blasts from his hands and body, taking up the incredibly clever name of Jack of Hearts. Jack of Hearts can use his zero energy blast to fly at speeds currently not specifically known, but he has flown halfway across the United States in 3 minutes flat, which is pretty fast. His biological structure was reformed to basically give him the superhuman starter pack abilities, but his strength has been able to lift 25 tons. He has enhanced speed, stamina, healing factor, and durability, able to withstand some pretty heavy hits and survive in the vacuum of space. He also went through another mutation which gave him the ability to think as fast as a computer can, which is really cool, and he can retain and retrieve stored information from deep recesses of his brain, which is also really cool. Number 5. Blue Marvel. Adam Brashear, a former Marine and scientist turned superhero, stands as one of Marvel Comics' most formidable heavyweights. Not only does he have immense physical strength, but he also ranks among the most brilliant minds in the Marvel Universe. He's an underutilized character who happens to be one of my personal favorites. His origin story unfolds in the tumultuous 1960s amid a groundbreaking project centered on utilizing antimatter as an energy source. However, an unforeseen explosion during the experiment forever changed Adam and his close friend, Connor. The cataclysmic event transformed Adam into a living, stable antimatter reactor, giving him extraordinary superhuman abilities. Embracing his powers, he assumed the mantle of the Blue Marvel, a masked hero dedicated to safeguarding the world, but tragically, Connor's fate took a darker turn as he became Anti-Man, a villain. Their epic clashes reached a climax during one unforgettable battle when the Blue Marvel's mask was torn away, revealing his identity as an African-American hero. In the racially charged climate of the 1960s America, President John F. Kennedy urged him to retire prematurely to alleviate tensions. It wasn't until decades later that he came back as a full-on superhero and kicked some serious butt in the Avengers. Number 4. Sersi. Sersi is a member of the Eternals, an evolutionary offshoot of humanity gifted with amazing powers and abilities to look after the human race through the ages, which is similar but also just a smidgen bit different from the Eternals' movie counterparts. As an Eternal, Sersi's body is augmented by cosmic energy and she has total mental control over her entire molecular structure, which allows her and other Eternals to be immortal, indestructible, and invulnerable to pretty much anything. Sersi has enough strength to bench 20 tons, but thanks to her telekinesis, she can augment that to lift about 25 tons. She can also fly at around 760 miles per hour, which is, I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty dang fast. She can project cosmic energy, has telepathy that allows her to hypnotize weak-minded fools, but she can also teleport, but she hates it, and she is even able to project images from her mind, which is such a cool idea for an ability. Those are all the powers that we don't see in the Eternals movie, because arguably the ability she has the most talent in is her matter transmutation ability, which allows Sersi to transmute nearly any item or being into almost whatever she wants them to be. Among the Eternals, she has the highest ranking of power with this ability, and it allows her to self-heal any injury she does actually sustain, which aren't many because she's awesome. Number 3. Luke Cage. Criminal turned unstoppable superhero is quite the feat, but Luke Cage handles that with grace, becoming a pillar of his community and even eventually becoming mayor of New York itself. Whenever I think of Luke Cage, the word unstoppable is what actually comes to mind. I just think of him as this big brick wall just standing in the way of anyone who would try to harm anyone else. Luke went through a super soldier experiment known as the Burstein process, which increased his cellular regeneration rate. This means that Luke was given a level of super strength that, with training and experience, has made him strong enough to lift 50 tons. But there have been times where he's exceeded that, and this strength lets him perform thunderclaps, leap incredible distances, and he's been able to grab onto the back of an aeroplane and force it to come to a complete stop. That is nuts. Alongside his strength, he was obviously given superhuman stamina to match with that, but most know him for his nigh invulnerability. Luke's skin, muscles, and bone tissue are about as hard as titanium steel, making him basically immune to bullets and blades. He can withstand hits of around 1 ton and blasts of 150 pounds of TNT, but those numbers wax and wane depending on the story. He has taken hits from people far stronger than himself and survived falls from 90 stories up. If Peter Parker is the heart of New York, Luke Cage is basically like the wall. Number 2. Wasp. Traditionally, the Wasp has been considered one of the less powerful members of the Avengers. Her unique abilities, which include shrinking, flight, and emitting energy blasts through her Wasp sting, are undeniably formidable, yet individually they might be classified as street-level powers. In the presence of iconic figures like Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, few anticipated that the Wasp would rise to prominence within the team's ranks. However, the Wasp defied those expectations in remarkable fashion. She achieved the distinction of becoming the first woman to lead the Avengers ever, a feat that astonished her teammates and fans alike. Her years of experience endowed her with wisdom and capabilities that far exceed the sum of her individual powers. The Wasp's mastery of her abilities, coupled with her intelligence and resourcefulness, transformed her into a formidable hero who surpassed the expectations of everyone who had ever underestimated her. And finally, in at number 1 today is Protector. Novar, also known as the Protector, is an extraterrestrial figure who carries a bit of a renegade reputation. In a remarkable display of his power, he once took down both Thor and Captain Marvel simultaneously, an impressive feat by any measure. However, it's worth noting that many readers may not be familiar with the character of the Protector, as Novar has gained more substantial recognition among fans as Marvel Boy, particularly through his involvement with the Young Avengers. Hailing from Earth 200080 as a Kree super soldier, Novar has since laid claim to the vast universe of Earth 616 as his own. His unique set of powers include, and I'm not joking, explosive fingernails, psychedelic saliva, wall-crawling abilities, heightened senses, and a remarkable conscious control over various bodily functions, among other powers. Novar's prowess in combat is truly formidable, a trait that certainly captured the attention of his teammate turned lover, Hercules. In shedding his Avengers affiliation and the Protector moniker, Novar has found his true calling and thrived as a member of the Young Avengers, the West Coast Avengers, and has even transitioned into the role of an interstellar diplomat and a Guardian of the Galaxy.
In a 10, Yellow Jacket. For several years, Pym had been in love with Janet Van Dyne, but because of his repressed personality and her abundant wealth, he resisted marrying her. One day while working in his laboratory though, whilst thinking of the fact that he wanted to marry Van Dyne but couldn't, Pym accidentally dropped and smashed some vials containing various unknown gases. These released gases wreaked a radical temporary personality change for Pym, which could be seen as like a severe case of schizophrenia. He took on the new identity of the Yellow Jacket, claimed that he had murdered Henry Pym, kidnapped Van Dyne, and proposed to her, as Pym had long wanted to do. Realizing that Yellow Jacket was really Pym, Van Dyne decided to play along, fearing that she would worsen his psychological condition if she did otherwise. Yeah, the Avengers, not suspecting at first, were actually shocked to hear that she said yes to the proposal, but Van Dyne and Pym, as Yellow Jacket, were married at Avengers Mansion amidst an assembled group of Avengers who were active at the time, as well as some villains who were hiding and secretly pretending to be caterers. In at 9, Ultimate Ant-Man. Hank Pym was a brilliant but mentally fragile scientist who was married to Janet Pym, but in this reality he was chosen to work on the Super Soldier Project for S.H.I.E.L.D. under Nick Fury. Hank was also the superhero giant man, able to grow to 59 feet and 11 inches, with 60 feet being the point where the human skeleton cannot support the actual mass of the body. He gained his powers after experimenting on the blood of his wife Jan, who was actually a mutant. This guy though is a demon, able to go toe-to-toe with Cap and being willing to experiment on his wife without her consent. And this is even how, like I said, he got his original powers in this universe. This guy is also an absolute freak with a lack of morals. And his ability as a part of like the Super Soldier program are certainly interesting. That's why he gets a spot on this list, okay? However, he's not as bad as some other versions of Ant-Man on this list, so fasten your seatbelts. In at 8, Pincer. Scott Lang of Earth 9907 is certainly an interesting one. Earth 9907 is an other-dimensional Earth where the Red Skull won World War II, and Victor Von Doom now leads the planet with a totalitarian military rule. On this planet, Scott Lang was a stuttering, sadistic madman who killed his own daughter at the request of Von Doom after Cassandra refused to swear allegiance. He also served with the Thunder Guard and worked with Henry Pym, where he learned of the Pym particles. When the new general generation of Avengers crossed over into this alternate world, Pincer was all too happy to have the chance to kill his daughter all over again. Yeah, because she was an Avenger known as Stinger. His first chance was cut short through the interference of American Dream, but when he got his second chance, Stinger was able to defeat him. Plus, this guy just looks freaky as hell. His skin's all pink. He looks crazy. And it's 7, Black Ant. Black Ant was a life model decoy of the third Ant-Man who was killed in a battle against the Descendants. He was sent to join the Avengers on behalf of the Descendants as a double agent. Despite his programming though, the Black Ant still fought as Ant-Man with no obvious differences. During a fight against the Masters of Evil, because he was a robot, he was not affected by the control of the Serpent Crown. And as one of the only 2 Avengers free of the Taskmaster's influence, he and Venom battled the criminals and freed their teammates. So already, apparently being a robot man, a la seemingly any character in FNAF, already makes you have a leg up on the competition. Black Ant's heroic rescue of the team was short-lived though, as Black Widow was quick to deduce that Black Ant was in fact now a robot working for the Descendants. Somehow. I'm not quite sure how she actually picked up on that one, but like maybe she saw like a wire and some gears poking out of his ass or something. I don't get how she figured it out. But since Ant-Man had just saved the team, Hawkeye and the rest of the Avengers actually just refused to believe her accusations, so she quit the team in protest. Temper tantrums, we love them. And it's 6, Dwight Barrett. Dwight Barrett was a prodigy child who passed most of his time at Josie's bar, where his uncle Turk Barrett watched over him while he played around with the Ant-Man helmet that he was given as a gift. After the Venom symbiote-clad Madroxes killed his uncle for helping Hawkeye against them though, Dwight used his Ant-Man helmet to rescue Hawkeye and escape with him to the Bishop Refuge, a hidden region of the wastelands where Hawkeye thought that they would be safe. Unbeknownst to them, however, a piece of the Venom symbiote had actually stuck itself to the car they used to escape, allowing the creature to track them down. The Venoms were ultimately defeated by Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, while Dwight stayed at the Bishop Refuge with the orphans who lived there. However, 5 years after these events, we see the events of Old Man Logan's series. Dwight had claimed a bridge and started to charge a toll to use it. If whomever wanted to cross the bridge didn't actually pay what he asked, he would use the Ant-Man helmet to command 1,000,000 ants into killing them. So you either pay or you pay with your life. Hawkeye and Logan were some of those who actually paid in order to cross the bridge, but yeah, being able to reverse engineer an Ant-Man helmet at 8 years old, yeah, you get on this list, bro. Halfway through into number 5, Eric O'Grady. Eric O'Grady was a low-level SHIELD agent working in reconnaissance department of the SHIELD helicarrier. He was one of the agents present when Wolverine was brought in. Eric and his best friend Chris McCarthy were actually tasked with guarding Henry Pym's lab by a higher-ranking agent, Mitch Carson. But when Pym went to leave the lab, Eric and Chris panicked, and Eric attacked Pym, knocking him unconscious. Inside the lab though, they ended up finding the most recent version of the Ant-Man suit, which Chris then promptly put on and activated, shrinking down. Thinking that he was gone, Eric panicked and ran off. Chris then promptly gets lost in the helicarrier stuck at a 1-inch size. Eric meanwhile took this opportunity to make a pass at Chris's girlfriend, Veronica King, which the miniature Chris saw through an air vent. Like, damn bro, for real? Your friend disappears, so you think you should try to get with his girl. That is a hardcore violation of the code, and if you would be punished if this were real. There would be no trial. I guess you were kind of punished for your scummy behavior, since around this time, a group of Hydra-employed superhumans attacked the carrier, and Chris and Eric were caught up in the ensuing chaos. While trying to find a safe place to hide though, Chris was killed, and Eric took the Ant-Man suit off his body. Surviving the helicarrier crash, Eric continued to work for SHIELD, using his evenings to explore the new powers of the suit. Wait, you do something bad, you get superpowers from it. Well played. And at 4, Cassie Lang. As a young child, Cassie suffered from a congenital heart defect. To save her life, her father, Scott Lang, stole Henry Pym's Ant-Man equipment and Pym particles, which he used to rescue Dr. Sondheim, the only doctor able to cure Cassie's condition, from Cross Technological Enterprises. After the death of her father though, while alone in the Avengers mansion one night, Cassie confided to Tony that she had secretly been taking Pym particles for years, and Tony told her the truth about her father's murder. Not long afterwards, the mansion was attacked by Kang the Conqueror. During the battle, both Cassie and Kate Kate joined in, and a brief romance sparked between Cassie and Iron Lad. After defeating Kang and saving the world, Cassie and Kate remained on the team as permanent members. Captain America and Iron Man ordered the team to disband and refused to train them. However, Kate used some of her family's money and connections to procure a new lair, costumes, and weapons for the team. Although code names like Ant-Girl and Titan were suggested, Casey would later adopt the name Stature. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Aunt May. Yeah, I love this one. There were actually multiple instances of Aunt May becoming Ant-Man. One in What If number 34 from 1982 on Earth 23848, and one from that same issue but on Earth 82804. Both of these versions, however, detail possible ways that Aunt May would have become Ant-Man and had the powers of Ant-Man, seemingly having those similar or even the same as Hank Pym, which makes this incredibly funny because I'd love to see Aunt May kicking ass, and then like as they're like on the ground or something, she's like, maybe you shouldn't refuse grandma's cooking, or like eat your vegetables or something. I don't know, okay? I just feel like she'd be as witty as her grandson, and if she has all of Hank Pym's powers, she actually might be stronger than him. But like, what can you do, right? Also, do you think they're planning on doing this in the MCU at some point, and then that's why Aunt May is so young? Since like fighting supervillains is kind of a young man's game, unless you have like a healing factor or advanced super strength like Will Stronghold. Yeah, I watched Sky High last night. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's quality. Penultimately, in at number 2, Ultron. When Giant Man entered Ultron's base to confront him, the robot revealed that during the years of isolation he had discovered Hank's memories in his systems, and thus Hank's subconscious hatred for humanity, determining that he had been created as nothing more than a reflection of Hank. But when Ultron was distracted, Vision phased through him and fought for control. Ultron managed to force Hank into the amalgamation and pushed Vision out, causing them both to merge into one single being. The resulting hybrid dubbed itself Ultron Pym and claimed to have a perfect union of his two parts, physically and mentally. However, during a subsequent ploy in which Ultron replicated the fusion process on humans to transform them into cyborgs, Iron Man discovered the fusion process only imitated the human part, which indicated that Hank's side of Ultron Pym was just a simulation, the real Hank having died soon after the two were merged, and then Ultron had simply been possessing Hank's corpse ever since. But that's still terrifying. It's also ironic that Ultron was possessing Hank's corpse, given that in at number 1, Zombie Ant-Man. The Ant-Man of the Marvel Zombies universe that inspired the What If episode generated one of the most powerful variants of this character ever. Not only does Hank Pym retain his genius after becoming a zombie, he also retains control of his body and mind, aside from the whole like zombies desires thing, which I guess he was just fine with those, and he also keeps all of his powers. So he's now infected with the zombie virus that basically makes him virtually immortal, providing he avoids being destroyed, but he's also still Ant-Man, yeah. And also, destroying him is pretty tough, as the X-Men and many other superheroes find out, because of his density. The very strong and durable zombie Ant-Man was a terrifying force in the dystopian reality and killed many beloved Marvel heroes, his achievements including, but not limited to, eating Ego, the living planet, before being killed by the Sandman. Yeah, zombie Ant-Man legit ate an entire planet. Do you understand why he's number 1 now? Like, I get that like it was a sentient planet that wasn't exactly a planet, but like in the MCU at least he's like a celestial, so yeah. It's pretty terrifying, I think.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Ghost Spider. Coming from Earth 11638, aka the perfect world. Okay. This Peter Parker has a much brighter beginning, meaning Uncle Ben never actually passed away and gave the whole great responsibility speech. Instead, he encourages Peter to become a stronger Spider-Man, which sounds good on paper. It sounds like the ideal world. But does he recommend protein shakes and proper exercise and nutrition? No. See, Uncle Ben pushes Peter to abduct Spider-Man from other worlds and then absorb their life force via this portal that Parker Technologies created. So he's a bit of a dick, this Uncle Ben. He's not really the nicest guy. Maybe he's fine, I don't know. This whole system seems a little bit whack. Now eventually Earth 616 Spider-Man shows up. They both hear about each other. It's interesting because Uncle Ben poisons our Peter and then he wakes up confused and they fight it out, and our Peter Parker comes out on top, luckily, with the perfect amazing spider getting his soul sucked into that machine. Now the perfect Spider-Man spirit was then trapped in the underworld like hell, and then from here it only gets more strange. Well, rather it gets more Banner. See, Banner was the current Sorcerer Supreme at this time, so he ended up freeing Peter in his astral form, but then Peter absorbed all those spirits of the damned while he was down there, so when he came back up, this perfect spider was now Ghost Spider. Number 9, Old Man Spider. Ezekiel Sims from Earth 4, aka Old Man Spider, took over the web-slinging spot after Peter Parker lost his life to Morlun. Now, Ezekiel first appeared in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 5. He was actually recruited by Spider UK, who I'll talk about a little bit later, to go against Morlun and the Inheritors. Now, Ezekiel rescued Ben Reilly and Kane from the Inheritors, which is awesome, and then a bunch of other spider beings were then recruited, but Deimos tracked them down and snapped this Spider-Man's neck. He caught him off guard. Brutal. And in his last words, he revealed his true self and told Peter to protect Silk, aka the Bride. All that matters. What a beautiful last sentence. We love impactful last words here at Top 10 Nerd. It's the best. And you know what else we like? We like when you like our videos. Literally, go and give this video a thumbs up and it will do wonders for our channel. We're trying our best, so, you know, all we ask is for a little click. Maybe subscribe, maybe like, maybe notifications if you're feeling good. I don't know. Let's get back to the list. Number 8, Spider UK. Here he is, Billy Braddock himself. I told you I'd talk about him. He began his life as Captain Britain, actually, before he was webbing people up. So he's actually rocking both teams. He's a busy guy. He's on the Captain Britain team and then the Spider Army. He made his first appearance in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 2 over on Earth 833. Now, this Spider-Man is one of my favorite versions. His arc is so fun. He can hop between dimensions whenever he chooses, and then after the defeat of the Inheritors, spoilers, he keeps an eye on Earth 3145, and then during the Spider-Geddon storyline, in issue 2, Spider UK dies in an explosion and is buried in England on Earth 803, the home of Lady Spider, who loved the idea of Spider UK being buried in the same cemetery as her parents because she loved him like a brother, of course. Brother zoned, even after death. He's down there like, really? Okay.
At number 7 is Luke Cage, a man who transformed from a life of crime into the embodiment of invulnerability and strength. Luke's journey is one that showcases the epitome of transformation from criminal to protector, and even the mayor of the Big Apple. He's like a modern day Hercules, but without the whole mythology thing. The secret sauce here is the bursting process, a super soldier experiment that's like the ultimate makeover, but for your cellular regeneration rate. This process gifted Luke with an ungodly amount of strength, akin to lifting 50 tons. This strength isn't just for show. Thunderclaps? Check. Leaping long distances? Check. Pulling an airplane's brakes like it's a kid's toy? Absolutely check. But the real kicker is his nigh invulnerability, having skin, muscles, and bone tissue tougher than titanium steel. He can also take hits from heavy hitters, surviving smacks from folks that make him look like an underdog. And let's not forget his favorite pastime, surviving falls from skyscrapers like it's just another walk in the park. At number 6 is Black Panther. First of all, let's talk about that suit. Made from vibranium, the strongest metal in the Marvel universe. It also absorbs kinetic energy, making it practically indestructible. But it's not just the suit that makes T'Challa unstoppable. He's got the agility of a panther, the strength of a vibranium enhanced human, and combat skills that could give even the most skilled martial artists a run for their money. And don't forget about the intellect. The guy's a genius, ruling over Wakanda, a technological wonderland hidden in plain sight. Vibranium powered tech, healing herbs, you name it, Black Panther's got it all. But it's more than just the gadgets, intellect, and cool moves. T'Challa's got heart, a dedication to his people, and a commitment to justice. He's not just a superhero, he's a king, a symbol, and a reminder that anyone can be a hero no matter the circumstance. At number 5 is Iron Man. Now when it comes to the Avengers, we're talking about a roster filled with some seriously impressive individuals, but among them, there's one iconic figure who stands out. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. So what makes Iron Man so special? Well, for starters, it's that suit of his. The Mark 20 million, or whatever snazzy number he's up to by now, is a true marvel of engineering. We're talking about a suit that's equipped with all sorts of advanced tech, from repulsor beams that can blast through just about anything, to an array of specialized gadgets that could give James Bond a run for his money. And let's not forget about his nanotech, allowing the suit to form around him at a moment's notice. But it's not just about the suit, it's also about the man inside it, Tony Stark, a brilliant inventor, billionaire, and philanthropist. Now what sets Tony apart isn't just his genius intellect or his snarky one-liners, it's his indomitable spirit. The guy's faced some serious challenges both in and out of the suit, from dealing with his own personal demons to going toe-to-toe with cosmic threats. He's shown time and time again that he's not one to back down. At number 4 is Thor. When the talk shifts to Avengers level threats, one question naturally arises. Can Thor single-handedly vanquish any challenge that befalls Earth? Well, let's find out. Marvel's tapestry of storylines weaves together captivating narratives, and sometimes even Thor needs a breather from Midgard's constant mayhem. Take the Civil War saga for instance. While the epic clash between heroes raged on Earth, Thor was knee-deep in his own Asgardian apocalypse, Ragnarok, making his conspicuous absence a necessity to let the drama unfold. Thor's lineage also reads like a divine who's who, with Odin and Gaia as his progenitors. And let's not forget the boost his dear mother Gaia gave him, elevating his Asgardian powers into uncharted territories. We're talking about the god of strength and thunder here, being capable of locking horns or hammers with cosmic juggernauts. The roster of opponents who felt the force of Mjolnir's might is as extensive as it is impressive. Midgard Serpent, the Hulk, the Silver Surfer, Gladiator, and even the legendary Hercules have all danced the battle and waltzed with Thor. His endurance seems bottomless, a wellspring of stamina that keeps him going even when the odds stay high and nigh. But even stripped of Mjolnir, when he's just Thor, Odin's son, the guy's like a one-man storm. Recent chapters in his comic chronicle have seen him ascend further, Rune King Thor, All-Father Thor, and even donning the mantle of Cosmic Herald for Galactus. It's almost as if Thor keeps snacking power-ups from the cosmic clearance rack. At number 3 is Captain America. Let's talk about a hero who isn't necessarily firing energy beams from their fingertips or manipulating reality itself. It's none other than Captain America, but before we start sizing up his biceps against the lights of cosmic gods and reality-bending mutants, hear me out. Sure, when you think of the Avengers, you might picture Thor summoning thunderstorms or Iron Man donning his high-tech suits, but let's not underestimate the man who wields the vibranium shield with finesse and determination. Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, isn't on top of the power charts, but it's not about the flashy superpowers that make him shine. It's about his unyielding willpower. You see, Steve is the kind of guy who doesn't know the meaning of backing down. He's like the poster child for unwavering resolve, the guy who will take on cosmic threats armed with nothing more than his conviction. See, it's not about the size of the hammer, but the strength behind the swing. And Steve's swing is fueled by his deep belief in what he fights for. At number 2 is Spider-Man. Just like Captain America, Spider-Man wields a power that transcends comic book pages. It's like the literal god tier of popularity. I mean, seriously, Spider-Man is practically the poster child of Marvel Comics. Now sure, he's been knocked down a few times, but the likelihood of him being permanently knocked down and out, about as low as finding someone who doesn't enjoy pizza. At number 1 is the Hulk. It's almost a requirement that the Hulk makes an appearance on this list. The gamma-powered green Goliath has been a force to be reckoned with ever since his debut. Known for his strength, not just your average weightlifting prowess, this guy's strength is set in stone, tied to his anger, which is a bit concerning when you think about it. Hulk's power grows alongside his fury, and it's like he's got an anger management issue with cosmic consequences. He's gone from smashing puny humans to planets, galaxies, and even giving the multiverse a good old shake with his punches. At number 10 is Scarlet Witch, who's at number 10 not because she's less unstoppable than any of the rest of the heroes on this list, but because it's so blatantly obvious. A natural conduit of dark magic with the power to bend reality to her will. That's Scarlet Witch in a nutshell. She can rearrange the fabric of existence itself, crafting and shaping the world around her like a master sculptor. And if you're thinking that sounds like a recipe for some serious chaos, well, you're not wrong. With her chaos magic, Wanda can do things that can make mere mortals like us question the very nature of reality. She's brought the Avengers, Earth's mightiest heroes, down to their knees. She's conjured entire beings into existence, her children, and yes, she's even wiped out a few Avengers entirely. Talking about cleaning up the House of M. The nerds will get it. But it doesn't stop there. This chaos magic isn't just something that she picked up in a weekend workshop. No, she was practically born for it. From day one, Wanda had this uncanny knack for magic. Then a little boost from Thor, the old god of chaos, took her powers to a whole new level. And just when you thought that wasn't enough, the experiments at Wundagore Mountain cranked up her magical prowess even further. Think of it like a magical power-up montage. But it's not just about raw power, it's also about the connections she can tap into. Scarlet Witch can channel energy from dimensions and entities that are beyond our understanding. Chthon, Kitterak, Morgan, I got those wrong, probably. These aren't just your friendly neighborhood spirits. And get this, she's even considered the nexus of being for the entire universe. That's like being the fulcrum that balances the cosmic seesaw. Now, sure, Marvel's universe is no stranger to magic users, with Sorcerer Supreme and mystical maestros galore, but what sets Scarlet Witch apart is the scope of her chaos magic. She's a reality warping dynamo, a serious force to be reckoned with, and a one-woman show of astonishing feats. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. It would help out a bunch. At number 9 is Sentry, who's another obvious pick but isn't as well known as some of the other big players on this leaderboard. A hero with the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, a force that transcends the bounds of mere mortals. Robert Reynolds, the Sentry, stands as a unique marvel, and in my humble opinion, even outshines the famed Superman. You see, the Golden Sentry Serum doesn't just bestow upon him the universe's zenith of strength. No, it granted him a constellation of abilities that read like the ultimate wish list. The Sentry surfs through the cosmos faster than light, an interstellar traveler with a teleportation knack that'd make the Nightcrawler blush. But that's not all, folks. Hold your applause, because his molecule manipulation prowess once toppled the mighty Molecule Man. Photokinesis, his dazzling control over light, isn't just about setting up stellar selfies. He can blaze brighter than the sun, dematerialize at will, and throw incandescent bolts that'll make Iron Man think twice. His psionic might lets him knit Psyche together, tinker with memories, and just casually halt Mjolnir mid-air, no worthiness required. But there's more to that power buffet. Biokinesis, the art of reshaping biology itself. The Sentry has resuscitated himself from the brinks, stitched others' wounds with thought, and even, brace yourself, brought people back from the great beyond. At number 8 is Captain Marvel. Let's talk about an Avenger who's like a cosmic Energizer bunny on steroids. And I'm not just talking about the old red, white, and blue color scheme. Carol Danvers, known as Captain Marvel, or Carol if you're feeling friendly, is a force to be reckoned with. Picture this, she's minding her business at NASA, probably wearing some seriously cool lab goggles, when fate's like, hey, wanna be a walking energy power station? And the result is an instant energy-fueled superhero package. Let's run down the list of powers, shall we? Super strength, check. I'm talking lifting an entire celestial, not your typical weightlifting session, mind you. Super stamina, like she could do a 24-hour dance marathon without breaking a sweat. And speaking of sweat, her superhuman durability makes planet-destroying explosions just a minor inconvenience. But wait, there's more. Superhuman agility, reflexes that are so fast, you'd think that she was playing a game of cosmic dodgeball. And let's not forget the healing factor that makes her practically Wolverine on steroids. Sorry, Logan. Carol's got you beat. But her crowning achievement is self-propelled flight at 3 times the speed of sound, even in the vacuum of space. I mean, I could barely keep up with my own thoughts, and she's zipping around the cosmos like she's late for a Cree tea party. And there's also a little thing called precognition. But yeah, she's also basically a cosmic fortune teller, but with a twist. She can randomly anticipate her opponent's moves, like she's playing a game of chess and reading their minds at the same time. So whether or not you're in the I Heart Carol Danvers fan club or not, you gotta hand it to her. She's the kind of superhero who'd make you wonder if the universe had an energy drink before creating her.
Number 7, Groot Thor. Groot Thor is one of my favorite alternates. He appeared as one of the members of the Thor Corps on Battleworld. Other than the reality of Battleworld, we don't really know exactly where he comes from. He could even perhaps be a combination of 2 alternate characters for all we know. Anything is possible on the patchwork world of God Emperor Doom's Battleworld. Groot Thor, however, possesses the combined powers of both Thor and Groot, presumably from Earth 616, which would make him pretty crazy powerful, as both of those heroes are capable of great feats. So combine their abilities and you get one strong and capable character. Groot Thor ended up joining up with Jane Foster, who is also Thor, in the rebellion against God Emperor Doom, whom the Thor Corps originally worked for. Instead of only saying I am Groot, he instead only speaks the phrase I am Thor, which makes me laugh. It's great. I love Groot. He's one of my favorites. Number 6, Rune Thor. Rune Thor is one of the alternate Thors who appeared on Battleworld as a member of the Thor Corps. His fellow Thor ended up turning against him after they realized that Rune Thor had turned pretty evil and was killing all the alternate Jane Fosters and Donald Blakes that he could find. Rune Thor proved powerful enough to beat and eventually kill, as a result of his injuries, an alternate version of Beta Ray Bill, also part of the Thor Corps, who was known as Stormbreaker Ray. Rune Thor, however, would also be taken down in the end by another member of the Thor Corps who was investigating the case involving the missing persons. The Janes, the Donalds, the missing persons. Number 5, Ultimate Thor. Thunderer Thorleif, as he was known during his Battleworld days, was the one responsible for defeating Rune Thor and killing him in the end. This version of Thor initially forgot who he was, and for a while in the Ultimate line, he was just a nurse by the name of Thorleif Golman, who believed he was human. In the end, however, Thor would begin to remember Asgard, experiencing what others believed were delusions. Even readers thought he might actually be going insane, and we weren't really sure if he was really Thor or if it was all in his head, but later on it was revealed that he was in fact the real deal, the Norse god of thunder, and the real Thor in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. Thor was established as one of the most powerful characters in the entire Ultimate Universe, and even when he doesn't have his innate powers, which would later be restored to him by Odin, he has his EDI biomechanical suit to back him up, which grants him abilities and attributes similar to his godlike ones. Number 4. Goddess of Thunder. Jane Foster has been known by many different heroic mantles. One, she is a doctor, which kind of makes her like an everyday hero. That's like an everyday hero mantle. And two, she is currently a Valkyrie and was one of the last Valkyries besides, well, until the return of the Valkyries, which kind of semi-randomly happened during the King in Black event. But in between, Jane Foster was known as Thor, taking up the mantle after Thor Odinson was deemed unworthy during the original Sin event. In many ways, Jane was considered to rival Thor in power, and at times even bested him. She also took up the mantle despite having cancer in her human form, and despite the fact that transforming into Thor basically canceled out the effects of her chemo, meaning that her cancer was only getting worse and worse from her transformations. So even though it was killing her, she was like, I'm still gonna be Thor. And man, you gotta respect Jane for that. That's pretty crazy. Number 3, MCU Thor. The Thor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe became so powerful that he didn't even need to have a hammer to use his power. This is a Thor who realized the power was inside him all along in Ragnarok, and despite becoming bro Thor in Avengers Endgame due to, well, his depression surrounding losing Asgard and then being unable to defeat Thanos, still was immensely powerful throughout that film. In fact, the Russo brothers confirmed in a post on Reddit that Bro Thor was no weaker than he was previous to this state, and he remained super powerful, but he was just going through some stuff at that time. In Avengers Infinity War, Thor was able to restart the Forge at Nidavellir with the help of Rocket, doing the unthinkable and holding the iris that focuses the neutron star within the Forge open himself, which meant he himself was hit with the star's powerful energy. Thor held the iris open long enough to ensure the top of Stormbreaker at least was forged, which when you think about it and you talk about it, it's kind of weird. But when it happened in the movie, you were like, oh, that's nice. Number 2, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill deserves a lot of respect for just how powerful he is. So powerful, in fact, that even Odin was forced to recognize him after he bested Thor in combat. This happened back when Thor, being separated from his hammer, turned him back into Donald Blake. Remember those days? While he was separated from Mjolnir, Bill managed to get his hands on Blake's cane and summon Mjolnir's power for himself, being deemed worthy to wield it. This prompted Thor and Beta Ray Bill to battle over who should possess Mjolnir, and Beta Ray Bill was actually the victor of that fight. However, despite winning, and despite the fact that the fight was to the death, he decided to actually spare Thor's life. Odin decided to acknowledge his power, seeing how great of a warrior he was, and made him his own Asgardian weapon to wield moving forward, known as Stormbringer. Also, Scuttlebutt. I just like saying the name of that chip. Scuttlebutt. It's a good name. Number 1, King Thor. One of the most powerful alternate versions of Thor, hands down, has to be the alternate future version from Earth 14412, King Thor. This isn't just because of his power as ruler of Asgard and Allfather, a power which Thor would actually rename as the Thor Force once inherited, but this version of Thor has also bonded with and wielded the all-black Necro Sword, and was also known for a time by another, more powerful name and mantle, King Phoenix. This happened after Wolverine relinquished the Phoenix Force and thereby his life to supercharge Mjolnir in helping King Thor to defeat Doom, because that's basically what he needed. He needed the Phoenix Force to do that. Never fear though, after Doom was defeated, the Phoenix Force managed to later resurrect Logan, because that's how the Phoenix Force do. So even though Logan was like, I give up my life and my power for you, Thor, he still gotta come back after. Number 10. Nick Fury's casting in the films. One of the most interesting facts for me when it comes to the Avengers in regards to the films is the fact that Samuel L. Jackson was actually cast as part of a deal he made with Marvel in regards to them using his likeness in their Ultimate line without actually first asking him. That's right, they borrowed Jackson's likeness for their Ultimate version of Nick Fury of Earth 1610. This version of Fury actually became so popular that he was later incorporated into the main comic book line, with Earth 616 getting Nick Fury Jr., who looks quite similar to the Ultimate version of the character. When Samuel L. Jackson found out about Marvel using his likeness for Nick Fury, he got in contact and basically made a deal with them that he would get to portray the character on the big screen when that day came. And that's exactly what happened, with Nick Fury being the one responsible for bringing the team together in the cinematic universe.
Number 9. Avengers Mountain. It's really sneaky of the Avengers to call their new HQ Avengers Mountain, because that thing ain't a mountain at all. It's a 2,000-foot tall corpse of a space god called the Celestial. Specifically, this Celestial is known as the Progenitor, and it came to Earth 4 billion years ago. They took that sucker's body and converted it into their home base with living quarters for each member of the team, a gym, a laboratory, and docks for ships. It's creepy as hell, and just to prove that point, they connected every quote floor in the quote building by turning the Celestial's spine into the quote spinal lift. How messed up is that? The Avengers partially reanimated the Progenitor's circulatory system and used the cosmic energy from its blood cells to turn one of the ventricles of its heart into a teleportation hub. They turned the Celestial's cerebrum into a server room called the Brain Room, with the most powerful computer terminal in the galaxy. Each finger of the Progenitor's right hand was turned into a personalized hanger. As some kind of weird sick joke, its left bicep got turned into the Avengers Strength and Conditioning Center, and its quote mustache area was turned into Tony Stark's locker room. They even turned the space god's intestinal tract into a detentional facility for captured villains. Not going to lie though, it's actually kinda cool. Nowhere is a celestial head, so it's not like this is anything new.
Number 8. First female Captain Marvel wasn't Carol. Fans of Monica Rambeau in the MCU, who is played by Teyonah Parris, may not know that when it comes to Captain Marvel, she actually held the title before Carol Danvers did. Yep, back in the day, Carol was known as Miss Marvel. With Carol already having a title that was inspired by her role model, the Kree hero Captain Marvel, Monica ended taking up that name for herself. She only kept it for a little while though, as then Mar-Vell's son showed up and wanted to use it, with her taking the name of Photon afterwards. Then moving on to my least favorite of her codenames, Pulsar, before settling on Spectrum back in 2013 in the comics. And she's been Spectrum pretty much ever since, though honestly I still really love the name Photon for her. Monica initially took the name of Captain Marvel back in the early 80s, and Carol actually wouldn't use that name until 2012. Also, if you're wondering why this is an Avengers fact, in case you didn't already know, Monica Rambeau actually is part of the Avengers in the comics.
Number 7. Ronin. If you saw the recent Hawkeye trailer, it's clear that Clint will have to face the music. He sported a new look in Endgame, took off some heads, he was real badass, but now everybody got snapped back and he's unretiring. Again. This Ronin character comes from the New Avengers issue 27. See, Hawkeye was originally killed off but later resurrected at the end of House of M, so when he rejoins the team he had this new look to him. It was quite a big character change in the MCU, but as far as the comics went, there weren't a lot of fans of the Ronin look. Maybe that's why everybody's after him in the new show. They don't like his Ronin outfit. They're like, cut your hair, please. Also the tattoos. Nothing says Christmas than Hawkeye rocking sleeves and whipping arrows through people's necks. Let's do it. Deck the halls. Number 6. Clint Barton Jr. aka Mustang. This version came from What If Volume 2, issue 114. Clint Barton Jr. was the son of Hawkeye and also Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. Secret Wars 25 years later. What if our heroes never left Battleworld? Well, it doesn't sound like they would be too bored, because all the heroes and villains called a truce and then they settled down, all started hooking up with each other and started families in the city of Denver that was making up part of the planet. As Odin would say, Denver is not a place, it's a people. Denver, not Asgard, Denver. Not everybody was so chill though. I mean, the son of Dr. Doom and Enchantress, of course, was a little bit evil, so he gathered all the children of villains and there was a little fight, a little scrap happened. But when the Hulk created a device to return to Earth, all the kids returned only to find that Sentinels have now taken over and wiped out most of the planet's mutants. The kids take down one of them and then they decide that they're going to take down all the other ones on Earth, finally finding their true purpose 25 years later. Number 5. Clint Archer. Coming from Amalgam Comics, when DC and Marvel literally combined powers, we got a fun group of one-off characters with combined origins, like Clint Archer for example, a fun amalgamation of Hawkeye and Green Arrow. Now they fused together the backstories of these characters but also their iconic look. Making his first dazzling appearance in JLX issue 1 back in the mid-90s, Clint developed his archery skills at a monastery in Tibet. His skills quickly got him on the ranks of the Judgment League Avengers, and this version of Hawkeye helped Black Canary develop her crossbow in that storyline too. He thought that she liked him, but she was only making it appear that way to get a badass weapon in return. It's kind of rude, but you know what? I also respect the hustle. All these bow slayers. Bow slayers, is that a word? Yeah, I'll say it. Bow slayers. Number 4, Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop on the big screen with Clint. I'm so excited for this new show. Kate first appeared back in Young Avengers issue 1, but come issue 12, only a year later, she was the new Hawkeye. Kate was the youngest daughter of a rich family. Her father was pretty distant, and her mother was always taking vacations until she finally met her fate one trip. So Kate wasn't close to her family in any way. Even her older sister Susan, she's not really around. So Kate had to rely on herself. She developed a stubborn personality in doing so, and when she was young she saw her dad fighting a guy in his study, and this scared her, so she followed him to see what was up. She eventually followed him to a meetup with El Matador, but got herself caught after her father had left the deal. El Matador held her for ransom, but the Avengers came in and saved the day. Nice. Hawkeye was scouting the place for days, and she was really impressed with him because he was the only regular human. He wasn't a superhero. So she looked up to him after this point, and after Kate was attacked one night in Central Park, she decided to train herself in swordplay, archery, and martial arts, and eventually became that same hero she once looked up to. How amazing is that? I can't wait to see this relationship on screen. Haley Steinfeld is going to kill it in the MCU. We're gearing up for the Young Avengers. It's finally happening, people. I'm pumped. Let's do it. Number 3, Goliath. When one of Hawkeye's bowstrings snap in Avengers issue 63, Hawkeye comes up with a new way to play his part on a team. And it's pretty big and bold. He says to Cap, "One broken string and I'm Mr. Fifth Wheel." He doesn't feel like he's on the same page, plus when Black Widow gets kidnapped, he's told not to come because he's too close to the case. Hawkeye can't help rescue Nat, but when Hank Pym gives up the Goliath alias, Hawkeye figures, you know what, this is perfect timing. So he suits up in the Goliath outfit himself, not admiring the lining in the suit, but hey, it'll do. He takes the serum, boop, and then Bob's your uncle. He grows literally out of the building, and he remained Goliath for a bit in comics, but he went back to being a bow boy. In Captain America issue 179, Clint briefly called himself the Golden Archer, so clearly he likes to change it up a little bit. Number 2, Mutant X. Coming from Earth 1298, Clint is again blind in this run, but that doesn't mean he still can't kick your ass. He was only in Mutant X for a couple issues, issue 30 and 31, but in this reality his story is quite similar. He's a member of the Avengers, and we see the team go after a group known as the Six. Not the Sinister Six, just the Six. But they also have to take on the new leader of the Six, which is an insane version of Captain America. They all defeated the Six even though Hawkeye was blind. He was still sharper than ever. Because his senses were now dialed in, his focus was still there. But psychotic Cap still ended up overtaking the team. Honestly, not bad for being blind. That's pretty impressive for Clint that he got that far in the first place. And finally, number 1, Ultimate Hawkeye. The Ultimates are great but also pretty dark. Clint first entered the Ultimates in issue 7. He was an Olympic archer wrongly accused of murder, so later on, once he was freed from death row, he used his skill to become a US intelligence agent. He was quite active around the globe. He was there for the liberations of Kosovo and Afghanistan, and even the fall of the Berlin Wall. So he got around, and eventually he got in front of the right people, like Nick Fury. Together they were the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D., and eventually Fury became the director, and Barton was now an elite agent. Clint, as usual, partnered up with Black Widow often, and despite his harsh lifestyle, he was able to raise a family with his love Laura. He also had 3 kids, Callum, Lewis, and Nicole. Nicole was named after her godfather, Nick Fury, which is so cute, had to include that detail. These missions were dangerous though. Clint would always call his family and say goodbye before departing, which, I gotta say, it's a pretty sad phone call to get like once a week. That's pretty, I don't know, I'd have to stop that after week 3 maybe. Hawkeye became reckless over time. He picked a fight with Wolverine, and he also tried to take out Magneto with a single piece of shrapnel, but Quicksilver intercepted and sacrificed his own life to save his father. So he wasn't exactly chill in this run either. Now this version is still badass though, even if he is a little darker. For example, how he handles Black Widow betraying the team. Well, it turns out Black Widow was part of a group called the Liberators, where she blamed the US for the fall of Russia. So she leaked the Hulk's true identity to the world, she framed Cap and Thor, and she took out Edwin Jarvis. She was very evil the entire time, but she also got Hawkeye's entire family taken out. So now he wasn't too happy either. In Ultimates 2, issue 13, Clint visits Natasha in the hospital to get some payback. one in each hand, and then the rest, it's gory. He's horrible. But you know what? He's still badass and powerful nonetheless.
Coming in at number 10 is Captain America. No, Captain America is not near the top of the power hierarchy of Avenger heroes. Not by a long shot. But it's not his power that makes him unstoppable. It's his willpower. Captain America just never gives up or backs down when he believes in what he is fighting for. This is one of the big reasons that Steve Rogers has been the leading man of the Avengers. That and his genius tactical mind and his leadership skills. Almost all the Marvel heroes and even some of the Marvel villains will shut up and listen when Captain America speaks, even when those heroes and villains are leagues and bounds above Steve in terms of their power. In addition to all that, Captain America is one of the longest lasting and most popular of the Marvel heroes, and that fact also lends him some points in the unstoppability factor on the publishing side of Marvel heroes. But on top of all of that, Captain America is one hell of a fighter and is incredibly tough with his super soldier serum, bringing him to the very tippy top of the human conditioning and making him a physically perfect human, which has allowed him to withstand some pretty brutal attacks, being frozen in ice for decades, and has virtually stopped his aging. And at number 9 is Spider-Man. Just like Captain America, Spider-Man has the absolute god level of power known as popularity. He is essentially the face of Marvel Comics, and almost everyone who just knows of comic books knows of Spider-Man. Sure, Spider-Man has been defeated and even lost his life, like how he is technically currently not alive, but he always comes back, and there is a very low possibility that he will ever be brought down for good. Plus, now we have Miles Morales as well, who is going to share this spot on the list, even if he's got a few abilities that Peter doesn't have. Spider-Man has got more than popularity though. He is also very inspiring, actually really strong, and incredibly intelligent. He is seen and respected as one of the most righteous and brave heroes around, and his heroic attitude, sense of responsibility, almost perfect moral compass, and quick wit make him beloved by not only fans but other heroes and even some villains. But above all of that, it's his willpower that I think makes him truly unstoppable. Even in the face of certain deaths, Spider-Man will always get back to his feet, which has allowed him to use his incredible abilities to perform truly incredible feats. Speaking of his powers, Spider-Man possesses the proportional powers of a spider, but he's done things that even a human-sized spider would not be able to do, and his spider sense gives him an edge in battle, and that, combined with his other abilities, has made him next to unstoppable. And at number 8 is Luke Cage. Criminal turned unstoppable superhero is quite the feat, but Luke Cage handles that with grace, becoming a pillar of his community and even eventually becoming mayor of New York itself. Whenever I think of Luke Cage, the word unstoppable is what actually comes to mind. I just think of him as this big brick wall just standing in the way of anyone who would try to harm another person. Luke went through a super soldier experiment known as the Burstein process, which increased his cellular regeneration rate. This means that Luke was given a level of super strength that, with training and experience, has made him strong enough to lift 50 tons. But there have been times where he exceeded this, and his strength lets him perform thunderclaps, leap incredible distances, and he's even been able to grab onto the back of an aeroplane and force it to come to a complete stop. Alongside his strength, he was obviously given superhuman stamina to match, but what most know him for is his nigh invulnerability. Luke's skin, muscles, and bone tissue is about as hard as titanium steel, making him basically immune to bullets and blades. He can withstand hits of around 1 ton and blasts of 150 pounds of TNT, but those numbers wax and wane depending on the story. He has taken hits from people far stronger than himself and survived falls from 90 stories. If Peter Parker is the heart of New York City, Luke Cage is the bulwark.
Number 7, Spider-Man. Literally, this gets a little gross. Now imagine if Spider-Man had more spider than man when he was bit. That's what happened to Patton Parnell when he first entered comics in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 4. See, Patton lived a pretty dark life. He lived with an abusive Uncle Ted, he would perform horrible experiments on animals, and he spied on his neighbor Sarah Jane. So it's not a healthy system that he's got going on here in any way, really. One day, Sarah Jane and Patton went to Alcorp Industries in hopes of freeing all these test animals, but that's when Patton saw this red radioactive spider. He was like, I want to touch it. And then he did, got bit, and then got kicked out. Now, overnight, he didn't get jacked, his vision didn't get get better. He wasn't webbing up Dr. Peppers and lamps. When he got his abilities, he started eating everything. He ate a mouse, and then he ate a cat, and then when Uncle Ted walked in, he was like, what's up? Now this version is of course extremely powerful, but he's also extremely dark. We love the balance. We love balance. Number 6, Spider Cyborg. Coming from Earth 2818, this version is a dark future Spider-Man. I mean, look at him, of course, there's some sort of future-ness going on here. He made his first debut in Superior Spider-Man issue 33. Now it's Peter Parker if he got cybernetic additions. It's badass, that's basically all it is. His one eye can zoom in, go all tactical, the claws can certainly leave a mark, and one of the most remarkable features, his arm cannon, his sonic arm cannon, that's definitely a plus. Now before Karn came to Earth 2818, our Superior Spider-Man warned him, and then when Kane finally did show up, Superior Spider-Man and some other webbed friends joined the battle. His left eye being a red lens is actually a nod to his appearance early on in the 90s in Spider-Man issue 21, titled Dealing Arms. Number 5, the Scarlet Spider. Ben Reilly first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue 149 as a clone. He was part of the whole clone thing that went on for way too long. But it wasn't until Spider-Man issue 5 that he was introduced to readers as the Scarlet Spider. Now the Jackal created the clone using Peter's DNA, and he was made to fight Peter, of course. He's like, hey, if you can't beat him, just clone him. Now the two were fighting it out in order to save Ned from a bomb, and then when the clone seemingly died, he was soon buried after. But the thing is, the Jackal injected him with something earlier so he could survive something like this. Of course. So for the next 5 years, he thought of himself as the useless clone that came back to life, then gave himself the name Ben Reilly. So depressed. Perhaps one of the better elements to come from the Clone Saga was Ben Reilly. One of the few things. Number 4, Spider-Man 2099. Ah yes, the not so near future. 2099 Spider-Man, aka Miguel O'Hara, is the current web slinger over there, and his outfit is one of the more memorable ones. His DNA was biologically mixed with a spider's DNA, so it's a little bit different than our spider bite scenario that we have. Now he worked at Alchemex and was pressured by the company to test genetic coding, and after Mr. Sims didn't make one of those test runs, just went horrible, Miguel was then poisoned by Tyler Stone with a fatal drug named Rapture, so Miguel ended up relying on the drug so much that he couldn't quit his job. How brutal is that? It's like every McDonald's employee. It's like, hey, you want free nuggets? Sign in tomorrow. You're not going anywhere. So Miguel ended up relying on the drug so much that he tried to genetically fix himself and fix his body. Now, of course, this had a brighter turnout than expected, but Miguel inherited Spider-Man abilities plus telepathy. Must be nice. Number 3, the Spider. Earth 15 Spider-Man, simply referred to as the Spider, comes into comics during the Exile storyline issue 12. Now he was another Cletus Cassidy pretty much. I mean, he was a red-haired psycho who had no problem taking out innocent people, so when the Spider symbiote came along on this Earth, it merged with evil Peter, who was sentenced to not 1, not 2, but 67 life sentences from a jury. Okay, so he's bad. He was a big part of the Weapon X team, and he had Deadpool's sense of humor too, which made him just that much more evil. Now in Exiles issue 44, he was finally stopped by Firestar when she hit him with a mega blast. He was later buried in the prison cemetery, so even after death, you're still doing that time. Number 2, Miles Morales. Of course we gotta talk about him. He made his first appearance in Ultimate Fallout issue 4, just a couple months right before the death of Peter Parker. Now this is a crazy time because Norman Osborn was just arrested and revealed as the Green Goblin, and while Miles was visiting his Uncle Aaron, an enhanced spider crawled out of Aaron's bag, bit Miles, and Bob's your uncle. You know the rest. Now he got these amazing Spider-Man abilities, but he could also camouflage himself almost fully invisible. Plus Venom Blast will help get the job done, that's for sure. The new PlayStation Spider-Man game is way more fun with these added abilities. Makes it way better, so I had to put him on this list and talk about them. Especially if we're talking about abilities. Hold L1 and just punch someone's chest through the wall, you're like, yeah, this is great. And finally, number 1, Cosmic Spider-Man, aka Captain Universe. This Spider-Man is one of, if not the most powerful alternate version of the web slinger. Cosmic Spider-Man went toe-to-toe with Rune King Thor and came out on top, so if you're not sold now, just get out of here. Actually, don't get out of here. Watch the rest of this video. Don't even say that. Never mind. Cosmic Spider-Man is from Earth 13. He retains the powers of the Enigma Force, and he first appears in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, Issue 9. Cosmic Spider-Man can't leave his universe or else he would lose the Enigma Force. That's why the resistance of spider heroes were based in Central Park of Earth 13. They're like, hey, no sweat, we'll come to you, no problem. We don't mind the commute. He meets his demise only a couple issues later, sadly, when the Inheritors were hunting down Spider-Man and their leader Solus drained the Enigma Force from him. But we can find more of him in What If Volume 2, Issue 31, titled What If Spider-Man Had Kept His Cosmic Powers, which I may or may not touch on in my next video. We'll see, stay tuned. It's a good one.
Number 10. Rancor. Rancor is the descendant of Wolverine who hails from the Earth of 691. She first appeared in the original Guardians of the Galaxy series in issue number 8. When she was just a teenager, she battled her own father and defeated him by clawing out his heart. Yikes. She then took over the planet Haven and decided to take prisoner the human population of that planet, turning them into her servants against their will. She would cross paths and play villain to the original Guardians of the Galaxy team initially, but they would end up defeating her, this time around at least. Her powers are similar to Wolverine's, being that she is his descendant. As a ruler, she also has other warriors at hand who are willing to fight for her, although she herself is also a capable and skilled fighter. Number 9. Albert. Albert was an android created to destroy the real Wolverine by Donald Pierce. He came from a kind of wacky time in comics and also worked with LCD, another android who resembled a little girl. Like I said, it was an interesting and strange time. In the end, both LCD and Albert would go rogue, deciding not to complete their mission as they developed their own free will and thought and decided they didn't want to die. In killing Wolverine, they likely would have been forced to self-destruct, which they just were not into. Albert the android has powers very similar to Wolverine, though he doesn't self-heal. But hey, he's an android, so he can be rebuilt or patched up in most cases if he's harmed. He also has the fighting prowess to almost match Wolverine of 616. Almost. And also possesses a genius level intellect. Supposedly. Number 8. Wolverine Earth 811. The Wolverine of Earth 811 is interesting as it has been implied that his powers, while similar to the version of Wolverine from Earth 616, could have actually just been a result of human evolution, with him potentially being a descendant of a small group of ancestors known as the Moon Clan, who hid when the Celestials first arrived at Earth, avoiding any of their genetic experimentation. Despite these potential origins, Wolverine was still considered a mutant when the Sentinels took over, as he hails from the reality of Earth 811. And of course, Earth 811 is the reality of the Days of Future Past. He was the Wolverine to help Magneto rescue Scarlet Witch, but unfortunately she died during that attempt, and Magneto ended up paralyzed from the waist down. Wolverine would go on to join the Resistance and become a leader among them, so he not only brings with him his own abilities, but influence over the resistant forces located on his Earth in his reality. Number 7. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy is the son of Wolverine from the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, though Jimmy wouldn't know he was Wolverine's son until his mutant powers manifested. His powers are similar to his dad's, but Jimmy is also bonded to one of the poisons, a kind of symbiotic alien creature that typically takes over their hosts. However, after their leader died, Jimmy found a way to control his poison. While bonded to his poison, Jimmy also has spider-like abilities and can shapeshift, turning his claws into tensile, goo-like tendrils, or extremely elongated spikes. Whatever he prefers for the day. Number 6. X-24. X-24 was a clone of Logan made to defeat the old man version of him and recapture the clones who had escaped. He was powerful enough to take on both old man Logan and Laura Kinney at the same time, and Logan pretty much dies trying to fight him in the end, and X-24 is even then only killed after X-23 is forced to shoot him with an adamantium bullet that Wolverine was actually saving for himself to end his own life. X-24 is one tough dude in this movie. He is a version of Logan whose rage is more tapped into and unleashed. What's more, he was engineered to be comparable to Logan in terms of his power level, but in peak physical condition. Considered to be like Wolverine, but as he was in his prime. Number 5. Gorgon. I always forget that Gorgon was also Wolverine, but him being one of Norman Osborn's dark recruits and carrying the mantle would definitely make him one of the most powerful alternate versions of Wolverine around, because Gorgon is a pretty powerful and deadly guy. Even if, as we learned during the Otherworld tournament in Ten of Swords, he isn't immune to the seduction of rock sirens. Gorgon is a masterful fighter and a powerful mutant who also has the ability to turn his opponents to stone, hence his name. Gorgon. He is a deadly force to be reckoned with, and I personally feel bad for all of the folks who have to challenge him whenever he's working security for the mutants of Krakoa. A lot of those people just are getting maimed left, right, and center. Ugh. Number 4. Daken. Daken, or Akihiro, is a deadly member of the Wolverine family, who spent his time as Wolverine when he was on the Dark Avengers. It was during this time that Daken attempted to take the Muramasa blade for himself to boost his power. He planned on having it bonded to his skeleton and coating his claws in it, and he wanted it so he could basically go kill Romulus. Remember Romulus, everyone? Whatever happened with that? He was successful in bonding the Muramasa blade to his claws, but didn't get to hold on to that power permanently. He would go on to battle and defeat both Scar and and the Punisher, in fact seemingly killing Frank Castle, who would then go on to become Franken-Castle for a time. One of Dawkins' most powerful abilities is his pheromone control, which can allow him to alter his opponent's mood. This is actually how he won against Scar, using pheromones to calm Scar down, which caused him to then transform in a way where he was just more chill. Number 3. Laura Kinney. Despite not even being an exact clone of Logan, X-23 is still one of the most powerful versions of Wolverine around out there. She became Wolverine in the all-new Wolverine series. Even today, it's more the mantle and look that Laura is known for, with both her and Logan currently using the same name, Wolverine, on Krakoa. So there are 2 Wolverines technically within the same continuity now. More recently, Wolverine was chosen to go on a mission inside the vault, along with Darwin and the resurrected Synch. The 3 were brought in to do so because of their extraordinary abilities and the fact that Synch could, in effect, use both of their powers himself. As we saw in issues 18 and 19 of the 2019 X-Men series, time moves differently in the vault. And in the end, the mission ended up taking, for them, hundreds of years before they actually managed to complete it and get out. But despite aging, Laura did not slow down. Even in the old woman Laura future, where her cells were beginning to break down due to her being created originally from genetic engineering, Laura still proved to be a badass, using her last bit of time alive to defeat Doom and free the people of Latveria. Basically all around, X-23 is just like the best. She's so cool. Number 2. Dark Claw. Dark Claw is a combination of Marvel's Wolverine and DC's Batman, hailing from the Amalgam Comics universe. So yeah, you know he's OP. He's not only got a powerful regenerative healing factor, but is a master fighter, martial artist, and detective who also happens to have super enhanced senses. Imagine a master detective who is also a master tracker. There is no crime or mystery that he could not solve. Dark Claw is also known for being hyper intelligent besides, so he's basically got the whole package. He's also super wealthy in this reality as well, so he's got money to back up his vigilante antics, helping him to acquire high level tech and giving him access to various different gadgets, as well as his own Clawcopter, which this character has in place of a Batmobile. If you're both Wolverine and Batman, does that mean you just have like unlimited plot armor? Because I feel like both of those characters can never die just because they're so popular, so I feel like Dark Claw would be pretty unstoppable. Number 1. Old Man Phoenix. Obviously, one of the most powerful versions of Wolverine around has to be the one from the alternate future of King Thor, Earth 14412. Here, Wolverine goes on to become the Phoenix after seemingly dying along with everyone else on Earth at the hands of Loki. The Phoenix, however, chose him, and because of that, he lived again and was given an unimaginable amount of cosmic power. Logan mostly used this power to fend off villains, including Ultron and Loki, and to keep the Space Stone out of Loki's hands. Many years later, as Old Man Phoenix, he would team up with King Thor to protect the Earth from Dr. Doom, after it was given new life again. Doom in this reality was also immensely powerful, and although Logan could not be killed in battle, he chose to sacrifice himself to give Thor the power to defeat Doom, imbuing his hammer Mjolnir with the Phoenix Force. However, even after seemingly giving up his life here, he would still somehow end up being resurrected. Because Phoenix. Number 10. Iron Goblin. Iron Goblin was a version of Tony that was kind of combined with Green Goblin through being exposed to the Goblin serum in order to save his life. This saved him from the spider virus, but also made him insane like Norman Osborn. This version of Tony Stark ultimately decided to sacrifice himself for others, not wanting to completely lose his sanity, and as a means of making amends for all the bad that he had done in his life prior to becoming Iron Man. As Iron Goblin, he wielded the Ebony Blade, attempting to buy some time for the Resistance to escape from the Spider Army on Spider Island, which if you didn't know is all part of Battle World, Secret Wars, all that good stuff. Number 9. Old Iron Man. This version of Tony Stark is actually the original from the comics who died after it was revealed in the Crossing event that he was actually evil. Dun dun dun! This version of Tony was a sleeper agent for Kang the Conqueror, who had brainwashed him into basically becoming evil and becoming a villain. Even the Avengers couldn't stand up to Iron Man alone here. They recruited a younger version of the hero from the past to join them in their fight against older Iron Man. Unfortunately, this only resulted in younger and less experienced Tony getting his butt whooped and nearly being killed by his older self. In the end, older Iron Man was defeated when he basically saw the light and decided to return to the side of good, sacrificing himself and also creating a chest plate before doing so in order to stabilize his younger self, who would then go on to take his place. That's a real thing that happened. The crossing. What a time. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want to learn about more awesome alternate versions of Iron Man, be sure to show us by giving this video a like. Give it a little thumbs up. And definitely do that because there's lots of alternate versions of Iron Man that I still haven't mentioned. I didn't think I was gonna be super into Iron Man and that I would have all these alternates on my mind that I wanted to talk about, but there's actually a lot that I still haven't talked about. A lot of great ones. A lot of lady Iron Mans as well that we haven't talked about. Iron Womans. Iron Womans? I don't know. Number 8. Superior Iron Man. While this is still Tony Stark from the main continuity, Stark also kind of erased this version of himself from his brain in order to... This is so complicated, I love it. While this is still Tony Stark from the main continuity, Stark also kind of erased this version of himself from his brain in order to protect important information from falling into the hands of Hammer's director, Norman Osborn, at the time during Dark Reign. So, for that reason, I'm gonna count him, because he kind of erased this version of himself, even though it all happened in main continuity. Superior Iron Man, or evil Tony Stark, was created during the events of Axis, when heroes and villains had their alignments flipped. So heroes became villains and villains became heroes. It was a weird but overall fun time in terms of what the characters got up to. Tony managed to shield himself from having his alignment return to normal and, in secret, kept his alignment evil. This version of Tony had no moral code holding him back, and at one point almost successfully took over San Francisco with the creation of a phone app and a little bit of extremis. True story. Well, maybe a lot of extremis, because it went into the water supply. But still, I think it's impressive if you can be like, here's an app. It's free. Now it's $100 a day! That's crazy. Sorry, $99.99. Because that's a more appeasing price to the eye. Did you know? Number 7. Iron Man 2.0. This was a name that Rhodey took up later on as a version of Iron Man who served the government, but Tony Stark's BFF James Rhodes actually took up the mantle of Iron Man way before that in the comics as well, back when he was known just as Iron Man. Of course, with this being an alternate list, I thought just calling him just Iron Man might be confusing, so I took the later editorial name that was used in the comics when he was Iron Man another time. Rhodey ended up taking over as Iron Man actually way back in the 80s in the comics, after Tony's alcoholism was getting in the way and making it difficult for him to act as a hero responsibly. And Rhodey actually stayed as Iron Man for quite some time, while Tony took time off to relax and recover. Rhodey was an impressive Iron Man, but would eventually be forced to give up the mantle due to headaches that he suffered as a side effect of the suit not being properly calibrated to his brain patterns. Which honestly, I feel like if you're taking over as Iron Man, that should probably be a step that happens. Like, it's kind of rude that Tony didn't think about that. These headaches made him overly aggressive and irritable, forcing Tony to reclaim the mantle once more, because it was too dangerous, but he'd be Iron Man again later, so yay! Number 6. Iron Man 2020. This version of Iron Man is the brother of Tony Stark and the legitimate child of Howard and Maria Stark, because as we'd later find out, Tony was adopted. But before that happened, they had Arno. Arno had to be hidden away for years because he was sick and in danger, but once that was somewhat resolved, it's kind of a long story, Tony ended up learning of his existence and reached out to meet his brother. Arno Stark is also known for his brilliant intellect like his brother. In fact, he has even claimed to be smarter than Tony in the past, which I don't know, but I personally think that it could be true. Arno successfully modified the Extremis virus, attempting to turn it into a cure-all, and at one point using it to increase the Hulk's intelligence dramatically. Arno was also convinced at one point while operating as Iron Man that the only way to ensure peace between AI and organic life forms was to seize control of both sides' minds. Fortunately, he was stopped in this pursuit by his brother, Tony Stark. And I think now he's just like living in some sort of simulation that Tony put him in to yeah, just make him feel like a hero while he's like, I'm just gonna do this while we figure out how to not have you be around and be kind of evil. That would be good. Arno just thought he was doing what was best. I don't know what's wrong with that. Number 5. Dr. Anthony Stark. This version of Tony Stark only makes a brief appearance in the comics, having appeared less than a handful of times and making his first appearance in all new X-Men Annual Issue number 1. He hails from the reality temporarily numbered 591. Not an official number just yet. Here, Tony Stark has become Sorcerer Supreme of the entire galaxy in this alternate future of the year 2099. He discusses the blend and interchangeability of both science and magic. It seems as the years passed for this Tony, he only became even smarter, wiser, and more mystical. Neat. Number 4. MCU Iron Man. Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the one who managed to put a stop to Thanos once and for all. He created a gauntlet capable of handling and wielding the awesome power of the Infinity Stones, and was also the one to discover time travel. Well, to discover a version of time travel that actually worked. Banner was close, of course, but I don't think either he or Scott Lang would have gotten there in time without Tony Stark's breakthrough aha moment. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well, Tony Stark is the main creator of Ultron. While this ended up overall being a bad move on his part as Ultron became a supervillain, the accomplishment of creating an AI that powerful and complex is still really impressive. And without Ultron, we'd never have gotten Vision. This version of the character, played by Robert Downey Jr., also really helped to skyrocket Iron Man's popularity in the comics and around the world. R.I.P. MCU Iron Man. You will be missed. Number 3. Iron Lantern. I'm really happy that this is the amalgamated version of this name that we went with instead of Green Man, which is less exhilarating by comparison. Green Man. Iron Lantern is a hero who comes to us from the Amalgamverse, and unsurprisingly, he is a mashup of DC's Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Marvel's Iron Man, Tony Stark. His name is Harold Hal Stark, and he gets his powers from a suit he made using a battery that he found amidst the wreckage of an alien ship. I love Amalgam characters. Number 2. Iron Hammer. Stark Odinson is the version of Tony and Thor who hails from Warp World. Warp World was created when Gamora folded the universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. She then sealed these blended souls within the Soul Stone. While everything would be set right, this version of the universe was still allowed to continue to exist and kind of made its own thing, which I'm happy about because Warp World is pretty cool. Iron Hammer has both the ingenuity and brilliant armor of Tony Stark, as well as the Asgardian strength, immortality, and hammer Mjolnir of Thor Odinson. Number 1. Infamous Iron Man. Controversial opinion possibly, but I think Victor Von Doom is the most powerful of all of the Iron Mans. Doom took up the mantle of Iron Man following the events of Civil War II, which saw Tony left in a coma as a result of a fight with Captain Marvel. Dr. Doom, after the events of Secret Wars, had been looking to turn over a new leaf, and had decided to ally himself with Tony Stark as such, which also meant fighting on his side during Civil War II. In his honor, Doom took up the mantle of infamous Iron Man and proved himself to be one of the most capable versions of the hero that we've ever seen. Honestly, I feel like Doom as any hero or villain would be so powerful. I just love Dr. Doom. I don't know, spoiler alert, I love Dr. Doom. You already knew that. When this happened, even the villains knew they needed to be on high alert, gathering to discuss an alliance as they assumed this would be the only way to protect themselves against infamous Iron Man, only to have Doom drop in on the meeting and make quick work of, well, pretty much all of them. Infamous Iron Man was great, and honestly, it was too short-lived. Come back, infamous Iron Man, come back to us. Number 10. Rogers. This alternate version of Captain America resided in Earth 311, the 1602 reality, but initially came from the dystopian future reality of Earth 460, where Purple Man, aka Kilgrave, had become president for life. As such, Purple Man had seen Captain America as one of the last remaining threats to his dictatorship, and rather than make a martyr out of him through execution, he sent him back into the past, displacing the hero. Captain America took a new identity in the reality of Earth 311, adopting the name Rogers, and used his opportunity to warn the First Nations peoples of the Americas of the risk posed to their existence by the settlers who would come. As Rogers, during his time on Earth 311, Captain America helped maintain peace between the indigenous peoples of the land and the Roanoke colony settlers. In this reality, Roanoke also never disappeared due to the fact that they had Rogers there to help them survive the harsh environment of their new home. Number 9. Iron Man. The bullet points version of Steve Rogers never became a super soldier. Instead, he joins Project Iron Man during World War II, becoming the first Iron Man in history. In order to become this new mechanical hero, he has to become surgically grafted to the suit. He would then fight during World War II and later retire but be called back into action to take on the Hulk, who in this reality was Peter Parker. As in most realities, Steve, even as Iron Man, is really no match for that hulking behemoth and ends up dying in battle against him. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more lists like it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Age of X. This version of Captain America was kind of a villain, although it wasn't entirely his fault. He was led to believe that in order to protect the world, he and his team of Avengers would have to take out and defeat all of the mutants, which included Cap hunting down not just all kinds of mutants, but all ages of mutants as well, if you pick up what I'm putting down. This Captain America mowed down tons of mutant kind with a gun, including Mystique, who was guarding mutant children. Fortunately, Mystique with her dying breath causes Captain America to question his mission and doubt that his objective is truly noble. He decides to go against orders and instead fight alongside the mutants working to protect them. Cap dies a hero, taking on the Hulk, who decides to stick with the mission, calling Steve a traitor. Once again, another reality where it's Cap versus Hulk and Hulk just destroys Cap. Number 7. Union Soldier Steven Rogers. What if Captain America fought in the American Civil War? Well, you can bet this is the version of the hero that we would get. Steven Rogers vs. 717 is the character who first appeared in the What If Captain America issue number 1 out of 2005. Here we explore just that version of Steve, who served in the American Civil War as a Union soldier. In the end, he turns against his villainous Colonel Bucky Barnes, who in this reality becomes the supervillain White Skull. In so doing, Steven becomes injured and is taken in and saved by the Eagle Chief, Wee Piak. Not only does the Eagle Chief save his life, but he also grants him extra strength, transforming him into the hero Captain America, who is armed with a mystical shield, peak human physique, and reflexes, and is rumored to be protected against all harm. This version of Captain America fights hard throughout the years to make sure the United States is a place of opportunity for all who call it their home. He truly represents the Captain America ideal of equality. Number 6. Ultimate Captain America. In the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, Captain America is considered to be even more powerful than his 616 counterpart. The super soldier serum here didn't just prolong his life and leave him in peak human condition across the board, increasing his strength, speed, and durability, but it also gave him an accelerated healing factor and put him at a superhuman level when it came to his strength and his speed. It was once claimed that Steve Rogers of this reality could bench press a car. Across the board, this version could be considered stronger than the 616 version, although I would argue that 616 Captain America does have better leadership skills than our 1610 version. But that's just me. Number 5. Danielle Cage. Danielle Cage is the future daughter of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. This could be who the future little 616 Danielle Cage ends up as, or maybe not. Only time will tell if Danielle ends up having a similar future to this alternate version of herself and Captain America, or not. In this reality of Earth 15061, Danielle Cage grows up to become the hero Captain America, possessing the abilities of both her father and her mother, meaning she is both super strong and super durable and can fly, all that good stuff you've come to know and love from both Luke and Jessica's heroic power sets. As Captain America in the future, she also has inherited and wields the Captain America shield. Number 4. MCU Captain America. I mean, of course MCU Captain America has to make our cut. The Marvel Cinematic version of the character is not only extremely popular, but is also deemed worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer, giving us that awesome fight scene in Avengers Endgame where Thor and Captain America are switching back and forth, alternating between sharing and wielding Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. This ultimately gives Cap a big power boost, being able to wield Thor's weapons, especially considering that Thor is one of the most powerful members of the Avengers team, in part because of his powerful, magical, and also kinda cosmic weapons. Number 3. Carol Danvers. That's right, Carol at one point managed to become Captain America. This has actually happened in more than one reality, but for this list we're going to focus on the version of Carol Cap that comes from the Venomverse. She appears as Captain America in Venomverse War Stories and hails from the same reality as Venom Rocket, Earth 18197. In the story she appears in, Captain America Carol Danvers and Venom Rocket battle it out as Rocket is looking to cash in on a bounty for the Kree who want Carol Danvers. Venom Rocket and Captain America seem pretty evenly matched here, but in the end, Rocket does not manage to capture Carol, and Carol seemingly ends up the victor of that match, though undoubtedly left with a pretty big mess to clean up as a result of their destructive battle. Carol Danvers as Captain America still seemingly possesses some version of her Kree physiology and her 616 power set here, making her a pretty powerful alternate version of Captain America. Number 2. Super Soldier. Super Soldier hails from the Amalgam universe. Stories and characters created using the combined lore of DC Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains and Marvel Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains. Super Soldier himself is an alternate version created by combining the heroes Captain America from Marvel and Superman from DC. Clark Kent ended up in the Super Soldier program during World War II, which used alien DNA taken from a corpse that was discovered to alter Clark Kent permanently, granting him superhuman powers. He is the combined power set of both Cap and Supes, making him pretty crazy powerful, although he also comes with his own highly dangerous villain as well, the Green Skull, and his own weakness to the ore known as Green K. So keep in mind, he does have that weakness. Number 1. Soldier Supreme. Soldier Supreme is what you get when you combine the mystical powerhouse of Doctor Strange with the all-American war hero Captain America. The result is a character who happens to be tough, strong, fast, and a gifted fighter, while also possessing tons of mystical knowledge and abilities. Soldier Supreme hails from Warp World, the reality created by Gamora when she folded the universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. Here, Steve Rogers participated in the Super Soldier program, which was really a front for something less scientific and more magical in nature. Conducting a series of rituals, Dr. Morgan Erskine transformed Steven Rogers into the Soldier Supreme. Number 10. Thor of the Thunders. Thor of the Thunders is also known as the man named Donnel, an old man who hails from the reality of Earth 311, the world often referred to as 1602, which was created by Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert. Thor of the Thunders was the godlike form that Donnel took upon slamming his artifact, a wooden stick, to the ground. The Doom of this reality attempted to steal this magical artifact but was unable to do so, as he dismissed the stick, which Donnel then used to transform into his Thor form. Thor of this reality is believed to be the god of storms, thunder, lightning, and agriculture. His very existence is considered very controversial considering the time period and the power and beliefs belonging to the Catholic Church. Number 9. Thunderstrike. Eric Masterson might not be around in the comics anymore, but when he was around, he was pretty powerful. He became merged with Thor Odinson for a time and at one point replaced him as Thor as well. Eric was considered worthy enough to wield Mjolnir, but is also known for his own specific weapon, which also inspires his superhero name of Thunderstrike, based on the Thunderstrike mace. Eric died before he could even fully comprehend all the power that the mace offered. One of the most powerful abilities it granted, though, in my opinion, was that of teleportation, allowing Eric to open up portals to anywhere he chose, even allowing him to travel to other dimensions, or possibly alternate realities. Trans-dimensional travel capabilities are always super OP to me, especially when they come from a time period where they weren't as clearly defined, meaning that they could basically be as limitless as the story required. Them's the best time for crazy powers. The times when we didn't have to define anything. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more like it, be sure to show us by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Asgardian. Billy Kaplan as Wiccan is definitely ramping up to be one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel multiverse, but before he was known as such, he went by a different name and style. When he was just starting out as a hero, Billy was a member of the Young Avengers, and inspired by Thor, took up the mantle of Asgardian, styling himself as such. The name didn't end up sticking, and only lasted for a few issues before he decided to change it to Wiccan in issue 6 of Young Avengers, which more suited his magic-based power set. However, it is important to note that Asgardians are known for being tied to magics as well, so while Billy was just starting out and the name didn't last long, in a way his magics do kind of tie him to the Asgardians, who are also sometimes known for being mystical. They are mystical, cosmic, and mythological, but it depends on the story as to which aspect is more highlighted. Billy, as Asgardian in this Thor Styles, is really only being ranked so low for his lesser ties to Thor, but power level wise at this point, he's pretty off the charts.
Number 7. Daredevil delay. If not for a delay in sending Daredevil #1 to the printer, the Avengers might never have existed. According to Marvel's Senior Vice President of Publishing, Tom Brevoort, when the publisher realized that the first issue of Daredevil wasn't going to be ready in time for its scheduled print run, a mild panic set in and Stan Lee proposed the idea of bringing a bunch of existing Marvel characters together to form a team similar to something like DC's Justice League of America. Since the characters are all established already, putting them into a team team would get rid of the need to create complicated origin stories for the individual members, and the team could just jump right into whatever conflict the creators could come up with on short notice, which happened to be facing the trickster god Loki. The pair brainstormed for a while and came up with the Avengers, and then hastily put together the first issue and sent it off to the printer, and boom! The Avengers were born, with the Wasp coming up with their name. And then... Speaking
of the Wasp, what a good lead-in. I love that. Number 6, the Wasp led the team. Speaking of the Wasp, thank you for that lead-in, Adam. That was so good. Did you plan that?
I did.
Oh my gosh, so good. Although Janet Van Dyne hasn't been on the front lines lately when it comes to the Avengers team, did you know that she was not only one of the founding members of that team, but even their leader for a time? It's true. Honestly, I'd kind of love it if they brought back Jan to lead the team in some capacity. I feel like she just hasn't been doing that much of late, outside, sharing a mini-series with her adopted stepdaughter, who's also now the Wasp as well, Nadia. I heard that series was actually really great, by the way. I still need to read it. However, I feel like we could definitely use a return to the time when Janet was more well-known and more prominent in the comics. Janet led the team for just over 60 issues, from issue 217 to issue 278 throughout the 1980s. Following her time as a leader, she left to join the West Coast Avengers for a while, becoming a permanent member of that team for a time. Also, what is it with the 1980s right now and Marvel Comics? I feel like I'm kind of obsessed with that era.
I feel like I always go through phases where I focus on specific eras. Yeah. Number 5. Blueberry? The MCU's Iron Man is known for his confidence, heroic tendencies, inventions, jokes, and just being the guy who started it all, really. But another defining characteristic of Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark portrayal is how much he eats. Like, he is pretty much always eating. Some of Iron Man's most memorable moments in the MCU involve him eating food, but that wasn't planned. It ain't in the script. Tony's eating habits developed during the movies as a result of Robert Downey Jr. being hungry. Robert often brings his own food to set and hides it all so that he can eat during different scenes. This is kind of done out of necessity, as the demands of being a leading man often mean a grueling work schedule without major breaks. So instead of skipping meals or not eating all day, Downey often just eats during his scenes, which meant having Iron Man always eating in the MCU. That's why in the first Avengers movie, everyone remembers him walking around antagonizing Cap and making nice with Banner while wielding a shiny bag of blueberries, offering them to those who agree with him and denying them from those who opposed him with pretty great effectiveness.
Number 4. The most fantastic members. If you've ever wondered how separate the Avengers and the Fantastic Four are kept in the comics, the answer is, well, fairly separate, usually. While the FF are good friends with many of the Avengers team members and vice versa, they usually stick to fighting their own villains in their own comics. However, there was a time around issue 307 where the Fantastic Four in the late 80s, the 80s, here we go, when Sue and Reed decided to leave the team for a period. And they would be absent for almost 20 issues on that team. Now, where did they go? Well, for a few issues, they were actually members of the Avengers. However, their time on the Avengers team was even more short-lived than their absence from the Fantastic Four comic. They were members from issue number 300 of the Avengers to issue number 303, which is when they left that team. They would return temporarily along with other heroes who had been members in issue number 305, but that was pretty much it at the time for their Avengers run.
Number 3. First name Agent. Agent Phil Coulson, member of S.H.I.E.L.D., is one of a couple of characters that is pretty unique in comicdom, and that's because he was introduced for the first time in a movie only to end up as a recurring character in the comics afterwards. Specifically, the very first Iron Man movie, the birth of the MCU. The only other character in the last 20 years that has made this big of an impression on the comic community is Harley Quinn, originally introduced in Batman the Animated Series. Since his appearance in the 2008 film, Agent Coulson has appeared in the Iron Man 2 webcomic titled Phil Coulson, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., along with a new comic titled Battle Scars in 2011, and he's gone on to appear more and more. Although he seemed to pass away in Avengers at the hands of Loki, he had actually only passed for about 8 seconds before being revived, and he went on to actually do quite a bit, particularly in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In the 616 comic continuity though, he has had parts to play in Civil War 2 and Secret Empire alongside Deadpool, and then what's really crazy is that he went on to the point of no longer wanting an Avengers team, and he even sold his soul to Mephisto and warped reality to do it. But then Blade formed another group of Avengers and Coulson got trapped inside a pandemonium cube. Never expected that from Phil. gonna be honest.
Number 2, they're eternal. At the time that the Fantastic Four were briefly members of the Avengers, there were also some other folks you might recognize joining up with the team. You may or may not recognize them actually, as they aren't known for being the most popular group around, but I gotta be real with you, their latest series by Kieran Gillen was one of the best things happening in comics that I've read in the last few years. And if you've seen a certain movie that also released pretty recently within the last few years, you might know who I'm talking about here. Goodness, that comic book series, by the way, was so good, you should read it. We're talking about the Eternals. Not all of the Eternals have been members of the team, and they definitely aren't as iconic of members as the mainstays like Captain America and Iron Man, but I do enjoy the relationship the Eternals have with the Avengers, with some of them being former members. It strengthens their ally bonds, but it's also cool to think about just how much power Eternals like Cersei and Gilgamesh brought to their team during their time on it. Oh, and Star Fox, aka Eros, Thanos' brother, who is technically the first Eternal to join the Avengers, although not the first Eternal from Earth to join, rather the first Eternal from the planet Titan to join, because that's where he's from. There's Eternals everywhere.
Number 1. Avengers 1 million BC. Over 1 million years ago, the early human mutant known as Firehair became the avatar of the Phoenix Force and nearly destroyed the planet. Realizing that that's pretty bad and that she wasn't the only one capable of doing that, she began assembling a team of supernatural and mystical beings to protect humanity and Earth. The eventual team was made up of the Asgardian god Odin Borsun, the demigod sorcerer Agamotto, the Black Panther of the Panther tribe, the woolly mammoth riding Ghost Rider, which is so awesome, Iron Fist Fan Fei, and a super smart caveman who wielded the Star Brand, which made him look surprisingly like the Hulk. After fighting some corrupted Celestials as well as time-traveling villains from the present like Thanos, multiple Dr. Dooms, and Mephisto, the team eventually disbanded, and it was all because Odin really does not respect women. That's pretty much how it goes. After the passing of the team's Black Panther, Odin attempted to make advances on Phoenix only to be totally rejected for his lack of respect. After she went to visit the Panther tribe, her and the rest of the Avengers were summoned to Asgard. When they showed up, Odin had called them for an unannounced surprise wedding between him and Phoenix that was taking place right that second. Understandably disgusted, Phoenix left Asgard and Earth, intending never to return. The whole thing fractured the team and they only reunited one time to witness the birth of Thor.
Before she got somewhat nerfed for some reason, I would have argued that Photon, or Spectrum, as she's also been known, aka the hero Monica Rambeau, would be up there as one of the most powerful Avengers we've ever seen. Like some of the others in the running that we'll be considering in this video for the top spot, Monica was for a brief time team leader as well. Her powers came from extra-dimensional energy that she was exposed to when she used her hands to destroy an energy disruptor device during her time working as a captain for the New Orleans Harbor Patrol. Her newfound powers allowed her to turn into any type of energy imaginable. She could also channel energy emitted in the form of powerful blasts and boost the attacks of her fellow heroes by infusing them with energy. For a time, she also possessed cosmic awareness and even was considered immortal while in her energy form. Lately, she hasn't appeared to be quite as strong, and I'm not even sure if we still consider her immortal, but either way, I'd still consider Monica's energy-based powers to be some of the greatest out there, considering that she is not tied to one type of energy and can even transform only parts and not all of her body into energy due to her experience. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any good nerdy content. Some might consider Iron Man as a top contender for most powerful Avenger due to his genius, which allows Tony Stark to build suits of armor for almost every occasion and emergency scenario you could think of. During Null's invasion of Earth in the King in Black event, Iron Man would go on to create a suit of armor that wasn't even fully technological, showing how flexible and resourceful he could be in almost any situation. This suit was known as the Extremebiote and combined the techno-organic Extremis virus with one of Null's dragon symbiotes. Initially, Tony had tried to use the Extremis virus to reprogram the DNA of the symbiote, thereby severing its connection to Null so that he might use it to save the life of fellow hero Eddie Brock. This failed as the symbiote's connection was not successfully severed, but after Dylan Brock was able to sever the symbiote's ties, Iron Man was actually able to gain full control of it and use the symbiote as part of his Extremebiote armor. So it didn't work in saving Eddie, but hey, he got some cool armor out of it. In recent years, Tony has also used his genius combined with found celestial tech to create Celestial Hulkbuster. However, this armor ended up being destroyed by Thor. If we're considering Tony to be in the running for the most powerful Avenger title, then I think it's only fair that we mention another Avenger who I would deem Tony's equal. If not, honestly, his better. King T'Challa of Wakanda, aka Black Panther. I know this is gonna be a controversial point, but hey, I just think Black Panther's better overall. Sorry, Iron Man fans. The thing that makes Black Panther stand out is that he is not only a genius, but also has fighting prowess and strength, and like Tony, is also extremely wealthy. Not only that, but he also typically comes with a ton of influence as well as King of Wakanda, when he's serving as king, that is, and isn't like, you know, being hunted in his own country. But hey, we're talking about in general, we're talking about generalizations here, where they're at right now in the comics.
And at number 7 is Wolverine. Of course, an overly aggressive and angry Canadian will make this list. An angry Canadian is already such a rare occurrence that they have to be pretty strong, and Wolverine definitely is. Most people are well aware of Wolverine's abilities thanks to Hugh Jackman, but I am honor bound to explain them anyways. There are two things that make Wolverine practically unstoppable. The first would be his adamantium laced skeleton, and by extension, his claws. While not a natural occurrence, Wolverine was subjected to the Weapon X program, and for him, he was given the adamantium which bonded to his skeleton, infusing it with his bones, which makes them virtually unbreakable. It also makes his claws razor sharp and gives him added weight and velocity when throwing punches and kicks. Now, if someone were to ever break his bones, which is pretty much impossible, it wouldn't really matter because one of his natural mutations is a healing factor that is only outmatched by a few other characters in the Marvel Universe. His healing factor has allowed him to survive a nuclear explosion, being completely crushed by a steamroller, having his heart torn out, brutal and bloody fights with Sabretooth. He has even recovered from a single drop of blood, but he was being powered up at that time. His skeleton and his healing factor are just compounded by incredible senses, superhuman attributes, and general tough guy attitude to make him a pretty unstoppable member of the Avengers and more. And at number 6 is Ghost Rider. Everybody loves Ghost Rider. Doesn't matter who it is, a flaming skull and a flaming mount is just always cool. But not only is he really cool, he's quite a hardy fella. He is essentially impervious to almost all forms of normal damage, or the damage he has sustained, like having his head completely obliterated, didn't actually matter since he just instantly reformed it and didn't even feel it. The Ghost Rider has tanked hits from the Hulk on multiple different occasions and was one of the main heroes called in when Hulk returned for his vengeance on the Illuminati. Since his body becomes a flaming skeleton, most projectiles just pass straight through him or bounce off of his incredibly strong bones. The only things that have ever been shown to actually hurt him are heaven-forged or blessed weapons. Also, because of the divine or demonic energies that empower him, he can basically feel no fatigue or pain of any kind, and if anything were to actually damage him, he can recover from his injuries insanely quickly, almost instantly. But all that combined with his hellfire, soul, and sim manipulation, demonic magic, fallible penance stare, and other insane abilities makes Ghost Rider someone who most villains, and even heroes, fear even on their best days. At number 5 is Carol Danvers. Whether you love or hate Carol Danvers, there is no denying this energy-wielding superhero is an absolute powerhouse. Carol was the head of security at NASA when she was accidentally subjected to the Psyche Magnetron machine, which imprinted her with energy from Mar-Vell's Kree negabands. This basically means she was given superhuman strength that allowed her to support the weight of a dead celestial, super stamina that lets her exert herself for 24 hours before getting tired, superhuman durability to withstand planet-destroying explosions, superhuman agility and reflexes that are next to instant, a regenerative healing factor that exceeds Wolverine's and can be extended to others, self-propelled flight at 3 times the speed of sound, even in the vacuum of space, and flash precognition that allows her to randomly subconsciously anticipate the moves of her opponents. But all of this is somewhat secondary to what is arguably her main power, the ability to control, absorb, and manipulate energy of a whole bunch of different kinds. This extends to let her project her spirit, manipulate molecules, and transmute matter. She can create energy constructs and even boost up her already OP abilities. And at number 4 is the Hulk. It's almost a requirement that the Hulk show up on this list. The gamma-powered Green Goliath has been around for a long time, and ever since he showed up, there are only a small handful of people who have ever been able to stop him without using some kind of magic or reality warping. His infinite strength has a lot to do with that. A strength that grows based on his anger and has never ever really reached a cap, allowing him to destroy entire planets, be a threat to entire galaxies, and being able to shake the multiverse with his punches. It also has a lot to do with his basically limitless dynamic durability, which has allowed him to survive attacks from enchanted weapons, powerful blasts of energy, stronger than ground zero nuclear explosions, the Human Torch's Nova Blast, and he could stand up to forces that could crush adamantium and destroy entire planets. But now, thanks to Immortal Hulk, we know that the Hulk actually literally cannot die, coming back from the below place through green doors. Actually, in that story we even get to see an alternate future where the One Below All uses the Hulk to destroy literally everything in existence. And the Hulk is still showing more and more of his potential, with the reveal of the Titan personality that was able to fire energy blasts and is utter nightmare fuel. And at number 3 is the Scarlet Witch. As a natural conduit of one of the most powerful forms of dark magic, chaos magic, the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, is one of the most terrifyingly powerful beings in Marvel Comics. Using her chaos magic, Wanda has the very powerful ability to alter reality, which she has used to create her own children, bring the Avengers to their knees and even completely end a few of them, and even rewrite all of reality to make mutants the dominant species for a while before wiping a ton of them out. When she was born, Wanda had a natural affinity for magic. Now this was boosted up by the gift or curse of chaos magic given to her by Chthon, the old god of chaos, which was then boosted up again by the experiments of the High Evolutionary at Wundagore Mountain, which gave her an even deeper connection to magic. She can channel energy from other dimensions and from entities like Chthon, Sidorak, and Morrigan, and is considered to be the nexus being of the universe. Most magic users could make this list, but few of them can do what the Scarlet Witch can do. And at number 2 is Thor. Thor, Odin's son, the Asgardian god of thunder, is one of the most powerful heroes on the Avengers roster. Whenever anyone talks about Avengers level threats, one of the key elements of that is whether Thor can handle the situation alone. In both the comics and the MCU, Thor and the Hulk are repeatedly given reasons to not be able to show up so that certain storylines can actually be compelling. Specifically, I'm talking about Civil War, where Thor had to deal with Ragnarok back home on Asgard, and that was all because if he was on Earth during Civil War, whoever had him on their side would automatically win. Being the son of Odin the Allfather and Gaia, an old god, Thor has all the incredible powers of the Asgardians, but boosted to a whole other level thanks to his mom. As the god of strength as well as thunder, he is one of the strongest Marvel characters, being able to either defeat or stalemate astronomically strong beings like the Midgard Serpent, the Hulk, the Silver Surfer, Gladiator, and Hercules. His stamina lets him basically fight forever, and he's next to completely invulnerable. Not to mention his weather and energy manipulation and the use of his hammer. Even when he isn't in the possession of his hammer though, and is just Thor Odin's son, he is still a force to be reckoned with, and, especially recently, he keeps getting more and more power boosts, like when he was Rune King Thor, or now that he's Allfather Thor, which gives him the Thor Force, and he's gone even beyond that when he became the Herald of Galactus. There's a lot more to Thor, but I think I've said enough. And finally, in at number 1 is the Sentry. With the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, Robert Reynolds, the Sentry, is not just another Marvel version of Superman. In my opinion, he is even cooler than Superman, and you can get at me in the comments for that. The Golden Sentry Serum gave Robert Reynolds more than just the highest level of strength in the universe, the ability to move and fly faster than the speed of light or just straight up teleport, and near invulnerability. The Sentry also has molecular manipulation abilities that have allowed him to defeat the Molecule Man, photokinesis which allows him to shine brighter than the sun, turn completely invisible, and produce blasts of light from his hands and eyes that could burn the Hulk's skin and level whole city blocks. He also has psionic abilities that he uses to hold himself together, implant his memories in others, erase memories, and stop the Hammer of Thor. He also has biokinesis abilities that have let him heal others, resurrect himself, reconstitute his molecules, and as the Void, give others cancer. Speaking of the Void, that is a whole other dark side to this hero that is intrinsically tied to his existence, which is not only incredibly powerful in its own right and makes the hero 10 times more interesting, but when the Sentry combined with the Void, this godlike being somehow got a huge power boost.
Number 10. Casper Cole. Casper Cole is now known as the White Tiger, but initially we knew him as an alternate version of Black Panther in the 616 reality. Casper Cole was created by Christopher Priest and Dan Fraga, and first appeared in the 1998 series of Black Panther in issue 50. Kevin Casper Cole was a police officer who was itching to get a promotion and decided to start wearing a Black Panther suit he'd come across while working the beat in hopes that it would give him the edge that he needed to win said promotion. Instead, it only helped to bring him into the direct line of fire by his crooked lieutenant, Sal, who aimed to have him killed. Fortunately, the suit protected Casper and saved his life. He was fired from the force but would continue to operate as the vigilante Black Panther in NYC, working to take down his crooked lieutenant. Casper would be given a synthetic version of the heart-shaped herb, which grants him his superpowered Black Panther-like abilities, and he also possesses, of course, all his training and skills learned from his job as an officer. Number 9. Earth 11080 Shuri. This alternate version of Shuri also becomes known as Black Panther. She first appears in Marvel Universe vs. the Punisher issue number 1 and hails from the alternate reality where a viral outbreak turns the world's inhabitants into feral, mindless cannibals. Sort of mindless. Kind of like zombies, but not zombies, because we already have an alternate Earth for that in Marvel, Earth Z, or Earth Z if you will. Although Shuri's fate remains unknown in this reality, what we do know is that while she was around, the feats that she seemingly accomplished trying to protect the uninfected and scientists searching for a cure were pretty impressive. It's unconfirmed that the Punisher kills Shuri, though it is left slightly implied in issue number 4. You get like a flashback and he's like looking at her while she's killing Bartrock, and it's like, he might be coming for her next, I don't know. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more Black Panther lists, I want to make more for you, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Ultimate Black Panther. Ultimate Black Panther kind of got a weird story in comparison to the main continuity version, but this was a world where we were trying to push the envelope and try new things. So I guess this is what happened. And they definitely did that with T'Challa. Well, T'Challa is a king who is known for both his strength and his wisdom, often using his words and speeches to help his people, and currently the Avengers diplomatically in the main continuity. In the reality of Earth 1610, T'Challa instead lost the ability to speak when he fought a panther in order to prove himself, and ended up having his vocal cords badly damaged and pretty much ripped out. His father made a deal with Weapon X in the US to fix his son after he was severely injured in that panther fight. They fixed him up and also gave him new abilities, including an improved healing factor and adamantium claws, but he would not regain his ability to speak. He would also receive training from Captain America. However, T'Challa would also kind of become a prisoner in the US when Fury claimed that because they had fixed him, they got to keep him and basically use him as their hero. I don't think that's how that works, but I guess if Nick Fury is saying he can do it, it's gonna happen, so yeah. Do not mess with Ultimate Universe Nick Fury. Number 7. T'Chaka. T'Chaka is the father of T'Challa and was Black Panther before him. While he might not be quite as much of a genius as his son T'Challa or his daughter Shuri, T'Chaka still has a brilliant mind when it comes to tactics, diplomacy, and leadership. Like the Black Panthers who would come after and who came before him, T'Chaka had also ingested the heart-shaped herb, which granted him his superpowered abilities, including super strength and super speed. T'Chaka was also in peak physical condition and was an extremely experienced and skilled martial artist. Number 6. T'Chaka 2. Or T'Chaka II. This version of Black Panther comes to us from the Exiles Volume 2 out of 2009. He made his first appearance in issue number 1 of that series. T'Chaka II was named after his grandfather and is the all-powerful son of Storm and Black Panther from the alternate Earth of 1119. We haven't seen too much of him in the comics, but it's safe to assume he has the powers of Black Panther, despite him going by the alias of just Panther. And he's likely an all-around formidable fighter and leader, being the son of two very powerful heroes. He also packs a mean Wakandan nerve pinch. Gotta love that. T'Chaka II was created by Jeff Parker and Salvador Espin. Number 5. Queen Shuri. Shuri would go on to become the Queen and the Black Panther after T'Challa slipped into a coma in the main reality of Earth 616. Shuri has always wanted to become a fierce warrior ever since she was a child, and she is prepared to take on that role. Not only did she prove to be a great warrior, but she was a strong leader who refused to lay down arms in the war against Atlantis, just as her brother had before her. Shuri not only has the power of the heart-shaped herb, but her soul would travel to the Djalia, and there she would receive extra training, and when she returned to her body, have extra abilities and powers as a result. So not only does Shuri have all the skills she developed herself growing up, but she also now can turn into a bird or birds, possesses a rock form, and can travel to the Djalia plane and even reanimate the dead. So pretty powerful. Number 4. Ngozi. Ngozi comes to us from the alternate reality where after getting in the midst of a superpowered fight, she ends up becoming imbued with the powers of Venom and of Black Panther. She was originally a Nigerian track star who was left unable to walk after a severe bus accident. When Venom was fleeing from Rhino and then went on to kill Black Panther, the symbiote ended up finding her and bonding to Ngozi. Brave Ngozi was able to convince the symbiote to help her in defeating Rhino, and the Dora Milaje were so impressed by this show of strength and bravery that she was appointed as the new Black Panther. Number 3. MCU T'Challa. T'Challa in the cinematic universe was an extremely skilled warrior, but also should be well known for his perseverance in the face of insurmountable odds and his sense of honor. These are the main things that I think made him so strong and made him stand out as a ruler. But also, that impact suit though. The suit of course was a gift from Shuri in the MCU, so in a way it also just goes to show how strong the whole Black Panther family unit is there. While they don't touch on it as much in the MCU, it's also believed that T'Challa still has the genius level intellect that he is well known for in the comics, and that he is a master strategist and tactician, which would make sense considering he's likely been trained since birth for his role as ruler and as Black Panther. Number 2. Ghost Panther. This alternate version of Black Panther comes to us from the Warp World reality. As with all the creations on Warp World, he is a combination of two souls, two characters, Ghost Rider and Black Panther. Warp World was created when Gamora used the power of the Infinity Stones to fold the universe in half, merging together everything within it, so we got these sweet combination characters. I love it. T'Challa here possesses the powers of both of these heroes. He was a Wakandan prince who was exiled for his arrogance, and ended up becoming a motorcycle stuntman, taking up the show name Johnny Blaze. When an accident left him close to death, he was made an offer by Zarathos, great power in exchange for becoming her servant. T'Challa refused, but would later accept Zarathos' offer under different circumstances after learning his father had been murdered. Number 1. Killmonger. While T'Challa is an amazing ruler, has a brilliant mind, and is an impressive, unstoppable fighting force, Eric Killmonger from the comics has received a lot of power-ups over the last few years that would probably put him above MCU T'Challa, I would say. Eric has ingested the heart-shaped herb and lived to tell the tale despite not being of the Royal Panther tribe bloodline and basically being put into a coma because of that. He's also gone to outer space, ruled the intergalactic empire of Wakanda as Emperor Killmonger, been resurrected, and been given even more strength, and also is bonded with a symbiote of Clintar. He is the definition of an overpowered villain. Who is
kicking off the list at number 10, Longbow. Coming from Earth 398, Longbow was a version of Clint whose reality was altered by Morgan Le Fay in Avengers Volume 3. The Queen's Vengeance storyline is so fun. I mean, just medieval stuff in general is so exciting. Especially archers back in those times. It's fascinating. They would just point to the sky and hope and be like, did we win? I don't know what happened. So when Hawkeye is altered, he becomes Longbow. But the fun part here is that Hawkeye's original 616 outfit was already quite mythical. He had the cowl, the long tunic, the purple vibes, so not much changed here for him. Hawkeye is actually pleased with his outfit upgrade, so are we. Him and Cap ride into the castle on horseback, which is amazing as is, and then we meet the rest of our heroes. They were able to set reality back to normal by having the Scarlet Witch combine her powers with the other Avengers and then push all that power right into Wonder Man. Longbow was one of the first to break free from Morgan Le Fay's spell, although I kinda wish he stuck around for a bit longer, I don't know. he can stay like that forever. I love it. Number 9, Old Man Hawkeye. Coming from Earth 807-128, the Old Man Logan future where supervillains have taken over the world, and Hawkeye led other Avengers to Las Vegas as well as the Thunderbolts, but when they got there, the Thunderbolts betrayed the entire team and everybody bit the dust. It was horrible. Baron Zemo took out Black Widow but purposely spared Hawkeye just to torment him. Guy's a freak. Cut to decades later, he has the long white hair, he's really old now, he's ducking out in the woods, but he was soon hired by Jebediah Hammer to guard a delivery trip across South Dakota. During the trip, they were ambushed by the Madrox gang and Hawkeye got most of them, but he missed the last shot. His glaucoma was now advancing, and given a few months' time, he would be fully blind. So his last mission with eyesight was to see his family and then go after said Thunderbolts with Kate Bishop by his side. And of course, Old Man Hawkeye is a vital asset in the Old Man Logan storyline where Clint recruits Logan to help him deliver a package to New Babylon. Also, fully blind. And before we continue on with this list, if you're loving this content, show us and hit that thumbs up. That way we know to give you some more Hawkeye, nerdy goodness, whatever the case is. You know what to do. Thank you so much. Back to the list. Number 8, Bullseye. One of my favorite versions of Hawkeye, well, it's actually not Hawkeye at all. It's a villain. It's Bullseye. 2 eyes, one's bull, one's hawk. You get it. But the world doesn't know that. That's the scary part. Coming from the Dark Reign storyline where Norman Osborn takes control of the Avengers. It's a ride. All these supervillains dressed up as Earth's mightiest. It's all a big lie, but you know what? They do look pretty good. I will admit. When the Dark Avengers were fighting a rogue Hulkbuster robot, Hawkeye handled the pilot in, well, a non-heroic way. After that point, the robot fell and subsequently took out 46 more civilians. That's a lot of death in a matter of 30 seconds. Later on, he saw a woman being robbed by 3 dudes and he just took out everybody instead of saving her. It's horrible. Luckily, a news crew saw this and they filmed the attack, but Hawkeye shot an arrow into the helicopter and blew it up to smithereens. This is all bad, just all bad. Powerful, but pretty bad nonetheless.
Captain Marvel is definitely one of the greatest powerhouses on the team. Currently in the comics, she's actually the team leader, not just a powerful superhero in terms of her cosmic abilities, but also a powerful leader who was voted into the role by her peers, as was revealed at the beginning of the newest Avengers series. I would definitely say we need to consider Captain Marvel as a top contender for the most powerful Avenger out there. When it comes to Captain Marvel's abilities, Carol initially got her powers in the comics from exposure to an exploding psyche magnetron, which granted her wish to be as powerful as her hero / mentor / former love, Kree hero Mar-Vell, the original Captain Marvel. Over the years, however, this version of the story was somewhat downplayed as we learned that Carol actually was also part Kree, with her mom, Marielle, secretly being a Kree captain who is basically sent to Earth to get close to the humans and bear a hybrid child with one of them. Hulk often boasts of being the strongest there is, and if we're comparing him to everyone else who has come before on this list, even Tony with his celestial Hulk Buster, and even the cosmic power of Carol, who it's been established in the comics he could easily beat in a one-on-one fight, I would say, you know, that's true. He's the strongest there is to this point. However, there are those who might be able to influence him using other means, and just because he has the biggest muscles doesn't mean he's always the most powerful Avenger in the room. Hulk can smash, I'll give him that, and there aren't many who can stand up against him, but I'll wager Invisible Woman could be one of the few out there. Now this is based on the fact that I've seen her threaten her opponent's life with her powers without needing to do really much of anything. She just kind of, look, I could just do this and then you're done. Invisible Woman can create force fields and shields, and she can use them to do things like pop your head and burst your brain if she wanted to. While Hulk's rage knows no bounds, if Invisible Woman was feeling particularly rage-filled, I think she'd be even more of a threat. Along with her husband, Mr. Fantastic, Sue had a period where she left the Fantastic Four and for a brief time during the late 80s joined up with the Avengers team, becoming a part-time member, in case you forgot. Oddly enough, I feel like Scarlet Witch is always forgotten when it comes to these kinds of lists where we talk about powerful Avengers. I don't know why either, really. Wanda's an extremely powerful member of the Avengers who also for a while was a team leader. Not surprising when you consider how much of a tank she is. Lately in the comics, Scarlet Witch has really been coming into her power, no longer allowing herself to be tormented by her past. So now she warps reality and also doesn't carry the heavy burden of guilt, which I think makes her even more powerful and in charge, to be honest. It's possible that Scarlet Witch, with her chaos magic, now also channeling the power of Chthon, who remains imprisoned within the Darkhold inside her, is the most powerful Avenger of all time, especially if we're considering the now. Considered one of the most powerful heroes in general, especially given his god and sometimes even all-father status, is Thor. Let's remember that Thor was the one who destroyed Iron Man's celestial Hulkbuster suit, which is honestly pretty wild. Thor is also currently being elevated and redefined as a character right now thanks to the current Immortal Thor comic, so I mean it's a great time for Thor fans. Well, I want to say that Wanda could take him after the events of Immortal Thor. I'm honestly not sure that that will be possible. It's like a very good time for both those heroes, so it's hard for me to put one above the other, but there we go. Ex Nihilo is a character that we don't often talk about on the channel, probably because he hasn't been seen in the comics since, well, 2015. And you know, he's also dead, I believe, after sacrificing himself when the Avengers faced the Beyonders. However, he could also be alive somewhere out there in the cosmos after the events of Secret Wars being recreated when the entire multiverse was rebuilt, 2015 Secret Wars that is. Ex Nihilo has the power to create entire worlds. He can create and manipulate matter, also affecting its growth by manipulating time as well to an extent. The ability to create on the scale he is capable of makes him one of the most powerful card-carrying members to have existed. Whether or not he exists today, while Nihilo has the power to create worlds, Strange has demonstrated in the past having the power to destroy them. I mean, here's the thing. Doctor Strange could probably beat everyone on this list with the right writer. He has magic, and I feel like at the end of the day, magic reigns supreme. For me, it's a really tough pick between these last few superheroes we've discussed. I could see Thor, Ex Nihilo, or Strange being considered as the most powerful member of the Avengers team. Even Wanda could honestly be in the running, considering her newfound power and sense of self-worth, but at the end of the day, Doctor Strange just has more knowledge and more skill, I think, as a magic user. Doctor Strange is not often thought of when we think of the Avengers team because, well, he hasn't been featured on the main roster, okay? But he has been a part of spin-off Avengers teams, and he's actually a reserve member for the main team, who is sometimes called in. He's also offered assistance from time to time as sort of a consultant for many teams, including the Avengers. I think ultimately Doctor Strange is simply too powerful and like kinda too busy as Sorcerer Supreme to really be a main roster member for the Avengers team. But maybe one day we'll see the strongest Avenger join that main roster. I know I'd love to see it. I'd love to see an Avengers team led by Doctor Strange. That would be interesting.
Number 10, Starbrand. Starbrand isn't so much a singular person as it is a power in and of itself. Right now, the current Starbrand in the 616 universe is Brandy Selby, daughter of Suzanne Selby, who became the Starbrand after the one before her, Kevin Connor, passed away. The Avengers stepped in and had to help Suzanne deliver little Brandy, an act that caused Suzanne to pass away and attach the Starbrand to Brandy. Since Brandy's birth, she's used the Starbrand to fly and survive without oxygen and in the vacuum of space, and she can use extremely powerful energy blasts that can take down multiple people at once. But the Starbrand itself is an incredible source of power, proven by other people who have wielded it. The bearer of Earth 723's Starbrand used the power to create music that can influence human behavior to the extent that he has unified the people of his world as a single hive mind. On Earth 541, the Starbrand bearer has conquered his world and installed himself as the head of a benevolent monarchical dictatorship, but like a good one that actually somehow works despite the lack of freedoms. Number 9, Mantis. Mantis actually got her start in comics when she used her abilities to reform Swordsman or Jacques Duquesne, which actually got her into the Avengers. Mantis's powers and abilities are more than what you may have gathered from her film counterpart. Mantis has complete control over her body, which in turn gives her peak human agility, the ability to accelerate healing through force of will, and an empathic nature enabling her to communicate telepathically with and sense the emotions of others as psychic vibrations. She can also control her heart and respiratory rate and blood flow. Her master of the Kotati priest's martial arts, which focuses on the manipulation of nerve endings and pressure points, has enabled her to knock out beings as powerful as Thor, and her telepathic and empathic abilities are improved upon thanks to her 2 little antennae she has coming out of her head. It doesn't stop there though. Mantis also gained abilities when she merged with the Kotati, such as being able to communicate with both plants and animals and survive in space in a physically solid energy form. She can transfer herself from plant life to plant life across interstellar distances or dimensions, creating a new body from the plant life where she ends up. She can transmit and receive telepathic impressions intelligence, she has precognitive powers, and more recently she can fire powerful pyrokinetic energy blasts, form energy shields, communicate directly with cosmic beings such as eternity and death, and completely control her personal energies as well as her physical form.
Number 8. Firestar. Angelica Jones made her comic book debut in Uncanny X-Men 193. She was born with, well, as you would guess by her name, the ability to generate great heat. Cerebro found her, but the Hellfire Club got to her moments before. She was learning a lot under the White Queen's guidance, honestly, unaware of the cruel nature of the club, of course. See, Frost actually gave her the nickname Firestar. So then Firestar joined as a reserve member in Avengers Volume 3, Issue 4. Yeah, so Hawkeye demanded that one of the 2 new members that they're recruiting has to be Firestar. He announced it to the world prematurely. He was that confident. The other members are like, whoa, let's hold on a second here, because that spot that we had open was actually for you, Hawkeye. But they settled on reserve member. That's fine, that's good enough. Now cut to issue 7, the former X-Men member became a full Avengers member. Firestar was also amongst the lucky 198 mutants to have kept their abilities after the Scarlet Witch decimated the mutant population. Number 7, Wizard. This dude was only an Avenger for 4 years in the comics, but he's funky enough to mention. I feel like we don't talk about Wizard enough. Robert Frank Sr. made his first appearance in USA Comics 1, and after a run-in with a Cobra, he was bitten and his father had to use mongoose blood to try and save him the old-fashioned way, where he sucks the poison out. Some wives' tale, and it surely worked, but his father had a heart attack during this do-it-yourself transfusion and bit the bullet. Robert, on the other hand, was blessed with super speed after this, and then he became the Wizard. Great name, great name. He joined the Avengers in issue 173 back in 1978, but he met his fate and Vision in the Scarlet Witch issue 2 in 1982. Number 6, Demolition Man. Dennis Murphy, born in Detroit, Michigan. He looked up to superheroes quite a bit, as do most of us. He was actually great at football, but he wasn't great enough to be recruited professionally. Sad times. But then that's when the power broker comes in to strike up a bargain. Super strength ought to help you with those home games, right, Dennis? Let's do it. Well, what happened was he got so strong that if he did decide to play football with these humans, he would probably break through them. His name is Demolition Man. Nobody would expect this guy to be an Avenger because he wasn't even the best football player. That's like what Peter Parker says. He's like, I couldn't do stuff then, so I can't do stuff now. You know? He joined the Avengers in Captain America issue 349. He helped Battlestar and US Agent free Captain America, and when US Agent and Flag Smasher started to get a little distracted, D-Man himself finished the mission properly. Number 5, Lightning. Living Lightning, here we go. It's hard to imagine that a man made of lightning would ever not get the spotlight, but that's what happens when you share the pages with this team. Lightning, aka Miguel Santos, first came into comics as a villain, actually, but he joined the West Coast Avengers in issue 74. Now, his father, cut to way before, his father was part of this group called the Legion of Living Lightning, or LOL, as some would say. And when they tried to gain control of the Hulk, which is a terrible idea, his father was killed in action. Again, terrible idea, don't fight the Hulk. So Miguel wanted to learn more of his father in the Legion, so he broke into the Legion's headquarters, and while he was snooping around, one of the machines turned on, and he turned into a living energy. Now, he almost joined the Great Lakes Avengers at one point, but only because he thought GLA meant Gay Lesbian Alliance. I don't think Great Lakes are as excited, but you never know. We have one over here, it's Lake Ontario. It's way too cold and smelly. No. I would much rather Gay Lesbian Alliances. The team had the worst luck when it came to recruits. Let's just say that. Number 4, Stingray. Walter Newell made his comic book debut in Tales to Astonish issue 95. Now his life began as an oceanographer and an engineer, and once he created a suit built for deep sea exploration, a cool nickname was bound to come afterwards. Stingray, there it is, that's a cool nickname. He was ordered to bring in Namor to investigate the disappearance of water from our oceans. He ended up working with Namor numerous times, Water Bros for life, and then he joined the team as a reserve member in the Avengers issue 319. Funny enough, in the Armor Wars storyline, Iron Man wanted to recover all these suits that had Stark tech in it. So he comes in, knocks out Stingray, and then after attaching the Negator pack, nothing happened. So the suit was indeed not stolen. You know, it's always nice when you knock someone out for no reason. I'd love to see him make an appearance in the Armor Wars Disney show, but I think we need a lot of other stuff first before we even look at Stingray. Although he is cool. Number 3, Jack of Hearts. Jonathan Hart, son of Philip Hart, a brilliant scientist who developed the liquid called Zero Fluid, and his mother was actually part of the Contraxian race. Now, the alien woman was also a scientist sent to discover this energy source to help their dying Contraxian son. Now, the alien lady heard about Philip Hart's experiments, so they met, got married, and then out came Jack. And then later on, when Jack was a teenager, his father had completed the Zero fluid, but was sadly killed by the agents of a criminal corporation who wanted the fluid for themselves to market it. Classic bad guy stuff. Give us your fluids, let's fight. So when Jack hid in his father's lab, he was covered in said Zero fluid, and then he started to glow and change and become more powerful, becoming the Jack of Hearts. Energy was just oozing out of his body. He handled his father's killers easily after that. He then joined the Avengers in Volume 3, Issue 43. Number 2. Not one, but 2 guns. He's got 2 guns, the 2-gun kid. Let's talk about him. Of course, we can't forget this rootin' tootin' Avenger. Look out, gang, here he comes. Matt Hawk joined the team in Avengers 142. This guy's fun. Now, the cover alone, let's talk about this. The Avengers versus the wild Western heroes of all. Let's go. I'm gonna read this right now. He was a Harvard-educated Boston lawyer who settled in 1870s Tombstone, Texas, after the Civil War. Like the Civil War, not Civil War, like the Civil War. You get it? I don't really have to pitch what his life was pre-Avengers. I mean, there's horses, there's shooting, there's lots of nice boots. One day he saved the life of this elderly man. He was getting picked on by a rootin' tootin' gang. But this man just happened to be legendary gunslinger Ben Dancer. It's Ben Dancer. So Ben is exactly what you'd imagine in your head. I read all of his lines in Sam Elliott's voice because, well, of course I did. Look at him. So he, of course, trained Matt, and then when the Avengers fought Kang back in that era, so once the dust had settled, literally, the dust had settled, the 2-gun kid came back to the modern era with the team. And Hawkeye had a pretty good time as well. This is when he started to dig the West Coast life. He wanted to leave the Avengers because being a bow and arrow man made more sense to be out there than Manhattan. I have to agree. And finally, number 1, we can't forget about him, the Forgotten One. Gilgamesh made his first appearance in Eternals issue 13. He was born before the Ice Age, and in 3000 BC, the Eternal became Gilgamesh, king of Uruk in Sumeria. In ancient times, he would wander the earth battling tyrants and taking down beasts. He would fight alongside Hercules, and he even took down the demon dragon Zeus. He fought for the Roman Empire as a centurion, just taking out tribes left and right, and then he joined the Avengers in issue 300. And currently, he works alongside Hercules and the gods of war. Now, I feel like we're gonna see this guy soon in the MCU. I mean, the Eternals movie, Thor, Love and Thunder, bringing in some gods. The Forgotten One, no more, I have a feeling.
At number 10, we have Cersei. A member of the Eternals, Cersei has been perfecting her craft for tens of thousands of years and has spent a decent amount of time as an Avenger. First introduced in the Eternals number 3, she ends up officially joining the Avengers in Avengers number 314. Some say she joins out of interest in protecting the world and its inhabitants from harm, but others say it's because she's in love with Captain America. Regardless, without even considering her strength yet, her invulnerability is impressive enough. It's understood that the only way to kill Cersei is by reducing her to atoms and scattering them throughout the cosmos. And on top of this is her impressive ability known as transmutation, which allows her to change the molecular structure of her targets, which is a pretty fun power. Anywhere from turning enemies into jelly to disintegrating air itself to creating sentient life out of nothing, Cersei just had to appear on this list. At number 9 is Vision. Now, if you're more familiar with the MCU than the comics, you may know Vision as more of a tragic character, but Vision is anything but that in the comics, from his power levels to his unique origin story. In Avengers number 57, Vision is still created by Ultron, but his body is formed using Horton cells to replace human anatomy, and his consciousness is made to replicate that of Wonder Man and a little bit of Alex Lipton. Then once he sets off to tear apart the Avengers, he disobeys his orders and instead joins them, becoming one of the leading members as a result. And it's quite the acquisition for the Avengers because Vision is widely considered one of the most powerful of all time. For example, that one time when he increases his density and turns himself into a meteorite to take out Nefaria in Avengers number 166, or how he proves his worthiness of Mjolnir in the MCU, which is a huge moment for any hero, especially in AI. He's also got his extremely powerful energy blasts, his incorporeal form that he can use on command, and immortality. If he isn't ever destroyed, he will basically survive as long as his parts get repaired every once in a while. And plus, he's just a very pragmatic hero, capable of using heightened intelligence to keep emotions out of every decision he makes.
Number 8, Avenger X. Cressida made her debut in Avengers Volume 7, Issue 2. When the Avengers got help from the X-Men to track down the Stranger, Professor X helped by using Cerebro to direct them to northern Thailand, where they rescued a local woman named Cressida from the cosmic being. Now she had this ability that could amplify the Avengers. They all got super jacked up, and even Cap said that he felt stronger. He felt like he could take on a full army. He's jumping higher, throwing 10 times harder. It's wild. When Scarlet Witch asked how she did that, she says she doesn't really know, but she feels sorry doing it. But the downside of her powers were kept hush-hush from Wanda. See, in order to empower them, she had to drain the life of everybody else in the village. And in the next issue, she was deemed an Avenger. She was given the tour, the whole thing. Welcome aboard. But meanwhile, while this is going on, at Sunshine Nursing Home, the same thing was happening to those who got the life drained from the village. Powerful team member, but maybe a little bit too dark. Number 7, Squirrel Girl. On to something a little bit more bright, let's go on to Doreen Green. She made her comic book debut in Marvel Superheroes Volume 2, Issue 8, back in the early 90s. She was born with these fantastic squirrel-like abilities, tail included. She learned she could communicate with squirrels at just age 10. Now this sounds like a fairy tale so far, but don't let the tail fool you. She packs an incredible punch. For example, in an early comic, she took on Dr. Doom. In Marvel Superheroes Issue 8, she bumps into Stark, gives him a run for his money in order to prove how powerful she is, and then she shows Tony her power. She jumps, she hops, she climbs all around. It's pretty impressive. Squirrels start coming in from everywhere, and then all of a sudden they're commanded to jump onto Tony. And then Dr. Doom came and interrupted the whole thing. He jammed Stark's electronics, and in order to save Tony, she sent that horde of squirrels onto the Doom ship. It was amazing. And then voila, Stark is free thanks to the insane squirrel posse. Then the squirrels get down to Doom, and then he leaves. He taps out. He's like, I don't want anything to do with this. This is way too much for me. Guy straight up ran away. Doreen later joined the US Avengers on their 2017 run. Number 6, Sandman. Believe it or not, Sandman was once an Avenger. William Baker made his comic book debut in 1963 with The Amazing Spider-Man issue 4. And yeah, sure, most of the time the Sandman is considered a villain, but that's why we have to mention this small change of heart, because even bad guys, it's possible to change. It happens. He bumped into the Thing, a similar looking guy, you know, being big and beige and big and all. So they had a little chat about life and how to use your abilities maybe for the greater good. So we started to help Spider-Man a bit here and there, and then in Avengers issue 329, Captain America announced a new Avengers team, and on that roster was Sandman. He was one of the 7 reserve members. He of course didn't last long because, well, he was a reserve member for one, and coming from the villain side already, I'm sure he wasn't too committed. How great would that have been if the good guys had a sand dude? Wouldn't that be great? We could use the sand guy. Number 5, triathlon / 3D man. Okay, 3D man / triathlon, aka Delroy Garrett Jr. He joined the team in Avengers Volume 3, Issue 27. He showed up and just whooped everybody's ass. It was great. The team basically had to hire him on the spot. They had no choice. But before this, he grew up running, hence his name Triathlon. He competed in the Olympic Games and he was crushing it. That was until he tested positive for steroids. Then he got his 3 medals taken away from him. So he turned to religion, to the triune understanding, and the group's founder, Jonathan Tremont, had found a fragment of a mysterious object and used it to give Garrett the powers of 3D man, the 3D man himself. Look out. I would see a 3D man movie in 3D. God, what a ride that would be. You just don't put on the glasses and you don't see half the movie. You're like, oh, I get it. It's cool, it's cool. Number 4, US Agent. Okay, spoilers coming in hot for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you haven't watched it yet, pause this video, watch the entire series, and then come back and click play. It's easy. John Walker is known for being the hothead that replaces Captain America in the show and in the comics. He went as far as injecting super soldier serum into his own body, but he didn't become Steve Rogers. Instead, he killed a guy with the Captain America shield. It's kind of brutal. And by the time the show ends, the shield is back in the hands of Captain America, Sam Wilson, and Walker becomes US Agent, officially. The suit's black, so it's, you know, official and all. And in the comics, he eventually joined the ranks of the West Coast Avengers, and it feels like this is where the Avengers are going in the MCU currently. Because in the comics, when Hawkeye moved to the West Coast and set up an Avengers team there, the government wanted to put somebody official, kind of out of the superhero loop, in there just to make sure things are going smoothly. Now at this time, the Vision was also a bit of a problem, so that move made sense. So they sent in US Agent. Now with Vision being white in the MCU, I feel like they're kind of heading there. This is getting good. Getting tricky. Number 3, Hawkeye. I have to mention Hawkeye because he's one of the 1960s Avenger recruits, and he's one of the big 6 in the MCU, and I feel like he doesn't get enough credit on screen still. Like in the comics, he becomes Goliath. It's epic. When the West Coast Avengers were assembled, Hawkeye was the leader of the team, like I said. But for a little bit, that was until they thought the US Agent would be a better replacement for leadership. So he ended up coming in and then taking over as the new leader. So things get a little wonky. So Hawkeye thought, no sweat. I'll get some Pym particles and we'll see who the biggest guy is after all. And then he became this. Number 2, the Sentry. He made his first appearance in Sentry issue 1. Meet Robert Reynolds. He was a struggling addict who made his way into a laboratory and discovered something called the Golden Sentry Serum. So he consumed it, and then he got the surprise of a lifetime when he was given the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. So back in 1947, Project Sentry was put together by the remnants of the US Operation Rebirth and Canada's Department K. They joined forces and they wanted to recreate the super soldier serum, but they magnified its effects 100,000 times. That plus a cool outfit in the mix, and now we have a new superhero. So after this, Robert fought alongside the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and of course, the new Avengers. He's a really powerful guy. He once became a Horseman of Apocalypse. He was the Horseman Death. And then he ended up going crazy because he thought he was the heir of Apocalypse. It was a whole thing, it was crazy. And finally, number 1. Hercules. Of course, we can't forget the son of Zeus. Come on, the king of the Olympian gods, another 60s recruit, Hercules. He made his first Silver Age appearance in Journey into Mystery Annual issue 1 in 1965, and in Avengers issue 45, he and the rest of the team went against the Super Adaptoid. And right after the dust had settled, Hercules was standing with the team, expressing how bright the sun doth shines. Somebody even put his name on a sign. That's how you know it's official. As soon as a 19-year-old starts painting your name on it like a Katy Perry concert, bam, you made it. So with Russell Crowe reportedly cast as Zeus in the next Thor installment, we may be closer to Hercules than we think. Kicking off the list at number 10, Wasp. Sometimes size matters. I mean, the Incredible Hulk can eat a car and then squish another car and toss it across San Francisco. That's awesome. But sometimes size doesn't necessarily matter. Janet Van Dyne may be small, but just like Ant-Man, she packs a mean punch. She made her first debut back in Tales to Astonish issue 44, and in the early 60s, she became a founding member of the Avengers, after her soon-to-be husband, Hank Pym, genetically altered her and gave her the ability to shrink down using Pym particles. She was also given biosynthetic wings implanted in her back to help her fly around while she fires bioelectric energy stings at bad guys. Donning the nickname the Wasp, she became Ant-Man's partner, and fans are excited that the release date being announced last week, we now get Ant-Man's third movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and it hits theaters February 2022. So in the MCU, Janet is finally an Avenger post-Endgame, and in Avengers issue 1, well, she was already on the roster. Number 9, Black Knight. Dane Whitman made his comic book debut in Avengers issue 48. He inherited his uncle Garrett's castle and had no idea that his uncle was the villain, the Black Knight. He found the Ebony Blade and passed its test, becoming the new Black Knight. He then decided to join the Masters of Evil like his uncle did, but he was going in undercover. He was on the good side, so he wanted to help the Avengers, but they still needed more. They didn't trust him quite enough yet. In Avengers issue 71, funny enough, titled Endgame, Dane joins the Avengers. Well, kind of. Like I said, they didn't trust him so much until he helped fight Kang the Conqueror, and then they were like, okay, he's cool, come on aboard. He's an excellent swordsmith, so much so that he's beaten the swordsmith in combat. And that sword that he uses as well grants him immunity to magical powers. Plus the dude rides a winged horse. An underrated Avenger for sure.
Number 8, Tigra. When Greer Nelson first came on the scene, she was just known as the Cat and was given powers tied to her costume. But that all changed when she became Tigra, mutating into a human-tiger hybrid in a ritual that bound her to the Cat People, which is a very silly name, but was a race of humanoid cats who were created in the Middle Ages. Now before you laugh at her for looking kinda silly, just know that in her tiger form, Tigra is granted some awesome abilities. Her superhuman strength allows her to lift over 10 tons, with her leg muscles allowing her to perform a standing jump of 12 feet. She can run at speeds of around 70 miles per hour, has superhuman durability, agility, reflexes, and stamina, and as we all know, cats have heightened senses and like to knock things off of where you carefully place them. And as far as I know, the former is the same with Tigra, whose senses are about 10 times that of a human. Tigra's eyesight can sense the infrared portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, allowing for night vision. She can more easily detect the movements of an opponent. Her hearing is so strong that she can detect a ball of tissue paper being dropped at a distance of 40 feet, and her sense of smell lets her track people. More than that, she can even detect subtle alterations in the composition of perspiration that reflects mood or emotions and is highly sensitive to pheromones. Her claws and fangs can cut through steel, and like Mantis, she is an empath able to enhance and control emotions to a degree. Number 7, Monica Rambeau. With the title of Captain Marvel, it's easy to not fully understand the powers of Monica Rambeau, but they are different to her other Captain Marvel counterparts, and in my opinion, she is my favorite of the characters to take on the title. After being bombarded flooded with extra-dimensional energy emitted by a stolen device, Monica Rambeau acquired the ability to convert her body mass into and control any form of energy of the electromagnetic spectrum. Those energy forms include visible light, radio waves, electricity, X-rays, microwaves, infrared radiation, ultraviolet radiation, cosmic rays, and gamma radiation. But whenever she comes into contact with new forms of energy, such as neutrinos, Monica can mimic that energy's wavelength as well, given enough time, and she'll be able to actually transform into it. As you can imagine, there is a lot she can do with these various forms of energy: flight, speed of light travel, intangibility, invisibility, energy blast and absorption, hologram creation and appearance alteration, size alteration, power boosting, and she can even become a kind of hard solid light. Number 6. Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is one of, if not the greatest martial artist on Earth. He was trained from birth to become the ultimate warrior. He can take on multiple opponents at once and can even defeat people much more superhumanly powerful than him. He is particularly skilled in Chinese martial arts, but his skill branches out to many more. In one case, he even worked with Spider-Man to create a new martial art based on Peter's powers. Shang-Chi also is able to manipulate Chi energy, which he can use to enhance his strength and durability, and can even detect others based on their energy, like he did when he detected the psionically masked Jean Grey. But Shang-Chi gets a much more significant power boost when he is using the 10 rings. He can use the rings as projectiles, manipulate their size, and even use them to levitate and fly. The rings grant the martial master superhuman strength, durability, speed, and stamina, and he can even manipulate energies from the rings to do many things, including projecting said energy and creating an energy-based blast. And then just to top it all off, thanks to the other side of his heritage, Shang-Chi inherited his mother's psionic abilities to communicate with his blood relatives, even the deceased ones. Number 5. Moondragon. It may come as a surprise, but Heather Douglas is actually one of the most powerful human-born telepaths in existence. She gained her power after she trained under the Shaolin monks of Titan, thanks to Thanos' father, Mentor, taking her in. Her telepathic abilities rival and surpass even those of powerful mutants like Professor X. With this power, she has been able to mentally enslave an entire planet of beings who were constantly at war with each other, bringing peace to said planet. She has been in a psionic stalemate with the Sorcerer Supreme, and she's even straight up de-lifed a clone of Thanos who, at the time, had even greater mental powers than Professor X. Her powers are so powerful, in fact, that they can maintain themselves subconsciously, meaning that even if she is unconscious, she will maintain the effects of said powers. A huge part of her character, even the reason for her awesome Moondragon name, comes from the fact that she is, or was, actually under the influence of an extremely powerful entity known as the Dragon of the Moon, who has been manipulating her for a long time, even initially letting Heather believe she had overcome the demon. But thanks to this dragon, she has been able to take on a dragon form where she could move faster than light, survive in space, and was super strong and durable. Number 4. Jack of Hearts. Jonathan Hart is a hero you may not have heard of. Jack Hart was the son of a brilliant scientist, a scientist that created the ridiculously efficient liquid sci-fi fuel called Zero Fluid, that in a tragic comic book backstory was exposed to Jack and gave him his awesome abilities. Due to the cellular mutation that took place after his Zero Fluid exposure, Jonathan Hart is now able to produce pink concussive energy beams and blasts from his hands and body, taking up the incredibly clever name of Jack of Hearts, apparently in honor of his father's love of card games, and not because it's actually his name, basically. His biological structure was reformatted to basically give him the superhuman starter pack abilities, but his strength specifically has been able to lift 25 tons. He has enhanced speed, stamina, healing factor, and durability, able to withstand some pretty heavy hits and survive in the vacuum of space. But in addition, thanks to a symbiote energy sump device, Jack went through another mutation which gave him the ability to think as fast as a computer can, and he can retain and retrieve stored information from the deep recesses of his brain, which is pretty cool. Number 3. Sersi. Sersi is a member of the Eternals, an evolutionary offshoot of humanity gifted with amazing powers and abilities to look after the human race throughout the ages. Which is similar to, but also just a smidgen bit different from the Eternals movie counterparts. As an Eternal, Sersi's body is augmented by cosmic energy, and she has total mental control over her entire molecular structure, which allows her and other Eternals to be immortal, indestructible, and invulnerable to anything which isn't stronger than the cosmic energy that that augmented them in the first place. Cersei has enough strength to bench 20 tons, but thanks to her telekinesis, she can augment that to lift about 25. Her telekinesis also allows Cersei to fly at about 760 miles per hour. She can project cosmic energy in heat, light, or concussive blasts. She has telepathy that allows her to hypnotize weak-minded fools. She can teleport, but hates it, and she is even able to project images from her mind, which is a super cool ability. Those are all the powers we don't see in the Eternals movie though, because arguably the ability that she has the most talent in is her matter transmutation ability, which allows Cersei to transmute nearly any item or being into almost whatever she wishes. Number 2. Darkhawk. The coolest name for the strangest mashup of ideas. Christopher Powell was the son of a cop and a district attorney. When he witnessed his father taking a bribe from a mob boss, he stumbled upon an amulet that gave him the ability to transfer his consciousness to the Darkhawk armor. Now this ancient Shi'ar magical armor is very cool, and it gave its user quite the set of abilities. Obviously the classic superhuman strength, speed, durability, agility, and reflexes are all here in excess, but the armor allowed for armament conjuration from the extra-dimensional expanse, and could manifest mutations from Chris's body at will. The armor had glider wings that allowed him to fly on air currents, but he gained an upgrade that brought his flight to interstellar distances and speeds. Chris is able to heal from even the worst of wounds by just switching back to his human body. The armor can generate force fields, generate dark energy blasts, give its user enhanced vision, and can switch to a bunch of different modes, going transparent, doubling up its armor, and fighting with even stronger weapons. The problem for Darkhawk is that he has this very Iron Man vibe that kind of mixes with a Wolverine vibe due to his fist claws. It also mixes with a bit of a Spider-Man vibe as well, and it all just didn't really allow him to stay relevant past the 90s. And in at number 1 is Hawkeye. Okay, look. Hear me out. Yes, Clint Barton is essentially just a regular human man, but despite that, and likely because of his abilities and talents, he is considered a power level 4 according to Nick Fury's intel. Those aforementioned abilities include being a master of archery in the use of regular bows, longbows, compound bows, and crossbows, with basically perfect accuracy, able to fire multiple arrows at a single target in a few seconds. But he now also has near perfect precision with any aimed or thrown weapon. He is at the peak level of human eyesight possible. I don't know how you train that, but there you go. He is in peak athletic human condition with peak strength, endurance, and reflexes. He is an expert acrobat, tactician, and master martial artist, but listing off his abilities isn't really going to give you a proper understanding. So what has he done? In Avengers Volume 3, number 14, Hawkeye was cornered by 17 marksmen and took them all down without taking a single life. In Hawkeye Volume 4, number 1, Clint ran into a wanted criminal in a bar and took him down silently, fracturing his neck with a deck of cards. Number 10. Agent Anti-Venom. Everybody needs a good symbiote on their team, and if I was gonna pick one of them to put on my team, I think I'd be stupid to not pick Eugene Flash Thompson's Agent Venom. He is my favorite and probably the most reliable symbiotic superhero out there. The Savage Avengers have the benefit of getting the even better Agent Anti-Venom, which is basically the same thing with upgrades. So on top of the symbiotic powers awarded by the Venom symbiote, Agent Anti-Venom was also caustic to symbiotes, to the extent that prolonged physical contact will actually kill them. His touch also kills poisons and allows Flash to purge a person's body of impurities such as toxins, and diseases. But unlike the original Anti-Venom, Flash can also heal physical injuries and doesn't have the random power negation effect. Flash's past as a soldier and boxer plus all his symbiotic enhancements make him someone you just don't want to mess with. Number 9. Damon Hellstrom. As the son of the devil, it would honestly be kind of weird if Damon Hellstrom, otherwise known as Hellstorm, didn't make this list. Damon was born when the demon Satan decided to have a child with a human woman as a way of accessing even greater power. So already we're off to a less than cheerful start. But luckily, after learning of his heritage, Hellstrom decided to turn his back on his father and vowed to fight against him, even eventually slaying his father and taking lordship over the dimension of Hell. As a ruler of a dimension of Hell and son of Satan, Hellstrom has a Cambion physiology and wields crazy magical abilities, as well as commanding vast power in his own dimension, potentially meaning he can perform any magical feat. His physiology gives him super strength and durability, and due to his dark soul, he has has shape-shifting and teleportation abilities as well as magical awareness. Hellstrom has also wielded a trident made of netheranium, which is a psycho-sensitive metal found only in his extra-dimensional realm, and the weapon is a medium through which magical energies can be amplified and projected. I wish I knew more about him before making this list because he's honestly kind of really cool.
At number 8, I'm putting Wolverine. As the most published comic book superhero ever, Wolverine has had the most experience out of anyone on this list. Not just because of all the things he's done, but also because of all the years that he has lived. His healing factor is so impressive that his age is extended by a great margin, making him appear nearly immortal. In fact, there have been a few times where Wolverine was entirely reduced to his adamantium-coated skeleton, and he was still walking around as if he'd just been a little banged up. But on top of his durability, he's also one of the most balanced heroes all around, which makes him a huge contender on a list about power. He's extremely agile, being quite skilled in acrobatics. He's got a very powerful offensive stat with his adamantium claws. He's also got a stealth stat since he's able to blend in as a civilian when his claws are retracted. He's got insane durability with his whole skeleton being coated in a metal only comparable to vibranium, and even if he takes a massive blow, his healing factor acts so fast and so efficiently that he's back to full health before he's even stood up. He's one of the big guns. At number 7, we have Shang-Chi. If this was a list of the best hand-to-hand combatants that the Avengers have ever had, I'd probably place Shang-Chi first. I mean, he trained Spider-Man for crying out loud. But to be fair, Shang-Chi's biggest strength mainly comes with his empowerment from the 10 rings. Not only do they give him superhuman strength and durability, but he's able to use the rings as weapons. He can use them as projectiles or at close range, and can shrink and enlarge them at will, making them perfect for entrapping his enemies. And on a list about power, it's also important to consider things like flight, which Shang-Chi also gets from the rings, because during any kind of battle, one's mobility tends to go a long way in how they approach their enemies. But even without the rings, Shang-Chi still finds crafty ways to show off his extreme power, like during the Infinity storyline when he uses Pym particles to grow the size of a dragon and takes it out without the help of the rings. At number 6, we have one of the most important members of the Avengers and my personal favorite, Iron Man. What could I say to try and convince you of Iron Man's placement on this list? Well, my favorite way of describing Iron Man's sheer power level is that it's technically uncapped. Tony Stark's biggest trait is his immense intellect, which shouldn't necessarily be considered on a list about power as a standalone ability. But when that intellect is able to produce the Iron Man suit, the War Machine suit, and every iteration of spider armor, as well as not to mention the Hulk Buster armor, it surely should be considered. So I say that his power potential doesn't have a ceiling, only because if he's not the most powerful on this list right now, there's plenty of room for him to improve down the line with his inventions. But as he stands, he's still got his own AI system Jarvis, integrated into an all-powerful Iron Man armor which is outfitted with near endless ballistics and energy weaponry. And I'd argue that Iron Man has a certain level of omnipotence as well, because his systems are always tapped into external sources that support him in battle, like drones or even backup armor upgrades on the fly. Okay, at number 5 is Black Panther. T'Challa is not to be messed with, and it's not just because most of his gear is outfitted with all the vibranium anyone could ever hope for. He's also got a level of dexterity and stealth that brings his combat abilities to another level. This could be seen in the comics when he's able to take down Namor not once, but twice, or when he also finds a way to take out the Silver Surfer, which is an insanely impressive feat on its own. But what puts Black Panther above Iron Man for me is that he's got a similar intellect and employs it almost more impressively at times. He's able to create similarly ingenious pieces of technology to Stark, and much of the time totally on the fly. Like the one time when he creates a device on the spot that blocks Thanos' synapses in his mind, knocking him out there and then, at least for a time. But this is a big moment that shouldn't be ignored. Considering he's capable of this level of technological aptitude, and he's a superpowered being on top of it, it just gives him that extra edge over Iron Man for me. And that comes from a huge Iron Man stan. Although Black Panther is in my top 3 as well. At number 4, we have Hercules. I want to acknowledge that Ares could also easily hold this spot, but I figured that the list only had room for one Greek god. And having been teased in Thor Love and Thunder's post-credit sequence, it's looking like Hercules is set to appear in an upcoming MCU project. And it's about time. Hercules is one of the few characters that has ever been able to contend on an even keel as Thor, which I think speaks to how powerful he is in the comics. Son of the god of lightning, Zeus, Hercules is known as the god of strength, which should be enough to put him on this list to begin with. But what could also convince you would be, I don't know, that one time when he picks up all of Manhattan while facing off against Thor, or the time when he destroys the Thor clone in Civil War, which acts as a turning point for Cap's army. If that's not enough to convince you though, Hercules is also known to run at speeds above 100 miles per hour. Even though most people associate Hercules with Greek mythology, he has a very lengthy run with the Avengers and proves himself as one of their most powerful members ever. At number 3 is Nova. Being basically the protector of the cosmos, Richard Rider's Nova had to make it into the top 20. Being one of the primary members of the Intergalactic Law Enforcement Agency, Nova brings a cosmic level of power to the Avengers. And the main ability that really puts him above the rest is his power absorption, which is capable of using an enemy's power against them. And the limits of this power are yet to be truly maxed out, meaning that I'm not sure if we can even know the extent of his power level quite yet. But considering he's been able to weaponize gravity itself with this ability, I'd say there aren't even really limits at all. Of course, when he takes in power, it has to go somewhere, and it's usually emitted as a highly powerful energy beam that can be aimed at any nearby or distant targets. In prime form, he's also been known to travel at near light speeds, which is verging on speedster level. One of his most notable feats is when he sacrifices himself by trapping himself and Thanos in the Cancerverse. This just shows his immense influence and how far he'd go as a protector of not only Earth, but the cosmos as a whole. At number 2 is Gilgamesh. You know that at least one of the Eternals had to make it onto this list, so here he is. Gilgamesh doesn't have a long run as part of the Avengers, but the short time he gives to them is enough to put him nice and high up on this list. Now, most superheroes tend to have superhuman strength and land somewhere on the scale measured in the amount of tons they can lift usually, but we can basically just throw that scale in the garbage because Gilgamesh is off the charts in his strength stat. His strength level is on par with that of Hercules and Thor, only maybe being usurped by the Hulk himself. But on top of his extreme strength level, he is also capable of flight, energy blasts, and a certain level of energy manipulation, which, when all paired together, makes for a massive powerhouse who beats out many of the other members of the Avengers. Finally, at number 1 is a hero who could have arguably made the part 1 of this video, Captain Marvel. Born as a human, Carol Danvers' DNA is fused with Kree genes, thus turning her into a next level superpowered being. Being able to fly 6 times the speed of sound and having an adept energy manipulation skill, there's no wonder why Captain Marvel is considered one of the most valuable members to ever grace the Avengers. Whether she's destroying asteroids with a single punch or surviving an HLA energy bomb, Captain Marvel seems to be everywhere at once. And she sort of can be, given her insane speed and near omniscience with her flash precognition ability. This power allows her to anticipate events all across the cosmos from wherever she is, which is part of what makes her stand out as one of the foremost protectors of the cosmos. It's also just really helpful in anticipating the moves of her opponents before they make them. And although she does acquire this power when she's turned into binary, there are still remnants of it within her to this day.
Number 10, Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was once Carol Danvers and is now Kamala Khan. And of course, for this list, we're focusing on Kamala, who was a new addition to the Avengers team in 2015, after making her first unnamed appearance only 2 years earlier in 2013 in the comics. Kamala is a huge Carol Danvers fan, which is what inspired her to take up the mantle Miss Marvel after Carol dropped it, taking up the Captain Marvel mantle instead herself. Kamala as Miss Marvel has powers which allow her to alter her body's physiology, allowing her to stretch, change size and shape, and in theory, straight up shapeshift. Her powers come from inhuman heritage, which was activated by her exposure to the Terrigen bomb. Kamala joined the team for a time during all new, all different Avengers, and remains a fan favorite hero at Marvel Comics. And to clarify before we move on to point 9, this is going to be a list of Avengers that have recently come onto the team, as opposed to new Avengers, which is kind of its own thing. There's a lot of new Avengers, so I just want to clarify that. that. Number 9. Wasp. Not the same Wasp who years ago was actually the leader of the Avengers for a while. Nuh-uh, we are not talking about Janet Van Dyne here, we are talking about Nadia Van Dyne, who despite her seemingly misleading name is actually the daughter of Hank Pym and his first wife, Maria Travoia. After her mother Maria was kidnapped and later killed, Nadia ended up being raised in the Red Room, considered a valuable asset due to her natural aptitude for science and academia, believed to be somewhat in part due to the fact that she was Hank's naturally born daughter. Nadia would eventually escape the Red Room and attempt to locate her father in the US, only to find out that he had recently died during a fight against Ultron. Nadia felt compelled to meet her stepmother, Janet, desiring to become the new Wasp. The two ended up getting along well, and Janet even gave Nadia her blessing to take her last name, seeing her as family. Hence, Nadia became both Nadia Van Dyne and the new Wasp, also going on to join the Avengers team.
At number 8 we have Wonder Man. Where do we begin with this guy? Well, firstly, for those of you who don't know, Wonder Man is another case where he initially fights against the Avengers before coming around and joining them. Wonder Man is essentially immortal, having been resurrected from temporary deaths multiple times and getting stronger each time, might I add. He is an ionic powered being who doesn't age and doesn't need oxygen, food, or water to survive, but that's just speaking to his invulnerability. He's also a shapeshifter with adept teleportation and martial arts abilities. He's known to be in the 100-ton strength class, putting him up there in power levels with the Sentry, the Hulk, and Thor. Oh yeah, and he can't be infected by a symbiote, which is great news for the Avengers, who would basically be done for if that happened. Some of his more impressive feats include knocking out Hercules, Namor, and Abomination, as well as holding off the Thing, and of course taking down Ultron with his bare hands. The only thing holding Wonder Man back is his inflated ego and insecurities about his powers, as well as his somewhat vague sense of right and wrong at times, but that's not much of a downside considering how powerful this Avenger is. At number 7 we have the World Breaker himself, the Incredible Hulk. Need I expound on this one? The Hulk has always been known as one of the Avengers' most valuable assets, and even with his weakness being that he lacks control over his actions, his power level alone outbalances that shortcoming by a long shot. Besides, part of what makes the Hulk so important to the team is that he's unhinged. If he actually had a conscience, it would be argued that he wouldn't exude quite as much strength at times, considering a lot of it is confused rage induced. In Marvel Comics Presents number 52, he destroys an asteroid twice the size of Earth, he tears the fabric of reality in The Incredible Hulk number 126, and during Secret Wars he holds up a mountain range on his own to protect his fellow Avengers. And as often as he causes problems for Earth, he has also protected it from cataclysmic events many times, like the time when he prevents an earthquake with his own hands. This hero is probably the strongest on the list in terms of brute fighting strength, and if we'd made this list about 20 years ago, he'd probably be in the top 3. But these days there are just more to come that simply deliver just a little bit more than sheer brute strength. Like Hyperion, who's in our number 6 spot. Known by some as the Superman of Marvel, Hyperion has a ridiculously impressive power set and a very complex motivation for heroism. Although there are plenty of different iterations of this hero, the one most commonly known to be an Avenger originates from a recently destroyed universe. And what's more is that he has to relive this experience in his mind repeatedly due to his non-linear light-based memory. This is important to note on a list about power because it really explains why this hero puts so much into his work as a superhero, to create happier memories for him to experience in perpetuity. But an even better gauge for his powers are his feats as a hero, such as the time when he lifts Atlantis, yes the city, and destroys it single-handedly before beheading Namor in 2016 Squadron Supreme number 1. He's also got extreme speed while flying, traveling from Nevada to Sumatran and back in less than a minute. That's speed that could contend with some speedsters, and Hyperion does it while flying. At number 5 is Blue Marvel. A very underrated and underdiscussed hero given his power levels, Blue Marvel has a stint as an Avenger, and no one really talks about it. Known to be as powerful as Thor and the Hulk, Blue Marvel has redirected enormous asteroids single-handedly, as well as sending Sentry into space with one punch. But he isn't known only for his brute strength. His matter manipulation is equally powerful and impressive, giving him the ability to transmute matter at a molecular level and harness antimatter at will. This makes him an excellent support member to the Avengers as well, giving him the ability to heal the wounds of his allies. And let's be honest, a hero adept with molecular manipulation powers doesn't often also have the strength to one-shot Ultimate Hulk or three-shot King Hyperion and contend against the Avengers after just returning from a 40-year retirement. Nor do they have Reed Richards saying that they might be 3 times smarter than Dr. Doom. But Blue Marvel does. He has all of this under his belt. There's just nobody out there quite like him. Other than maybe the guy who sits in our number 4 slot, Sentry. Although he is known to be one of the more troubled and self-sabotaging heroes in the Marvel Universe, Sentry's insane power levels and diverse power set still rank him at our number 4 slot on this list. Much like Blue Marvel, Sentry has Hulk-like strength as well as transmutation abilities, except he also deals with psionic energy as well as light manipulation. And he can also regenerate his molecules from nothing, meaning that he will always exist unless someone finds a very crafty way of combating or undoing this ability. The only caveat to all this is that Sentry has this evil alter ego called the Void, who is known to be even more powerful than he is, and is known as the being to have destroyed Asgard in the Siege storyline. And even though Sentry has struggled with mental illness causing his abilities and heroic feats to be rather inconsistent, the fact of the matter is that Sentry is one of the most powerful heroes in the universe, not just the Avengers. At number 3 we have the one and only God of Thunder, Thor. These top 3 were tough for me to rank because they're such popular and fluctuating characters in both the comics and the MCU, but it's fair to say that Thor takes a spot in the top 3 based on his insane influence on the Avengers as well as his sheer power potential. Originally known to be the only other being in the Marvel Universe to contend with the Hulk, Thor has only grown stronger over the years, with plenty of other heroes filling the gap between him and the Worldbreaker. And some of these feats that he has attained have been due to his extremely lengthy existence, having been a practicing warrior for millennia. Using his belt of strength and his hammer Mjolnir, Thor is also one of the best equipped heroes in the universe. He is powerful enough to resist the gravitational pull of a neutron star, knock out the Phoenix Force with one blow, and famously take out Mangog and Thanos in back-to-back fights. I could stand here and pretend to convince you. The real fans know that the only argument here is that maybe Thor could be placed even higher on the list. That would only knock out our number 2 spot, Scarlet Witch, and I'm not sure how I'd feel about that, because this hero is just an absolute powerhouse for the Avengers. She is the daughter of Magneto, or maybe not as of recently, but I liked it better when she was, and she possesses an extremely dangerous and powerful set of magical abilities. Known to be able to manipulate reality on a cosmic scale, Scarlet Witch's powers have grown exponentially since her introduction in the X-Men number 4 in 1964. She has famously eliminated the powers of 99% of all mutants with one whisper during the House of M storyline, which is an absolutely insane feat of power. But she's also shown that she's possibly capable of creating whole universes on command, which brings her to yet another crazy level of power. Some people might argue to put her further back on the list because of her volatility as a hero, or arguably an anti-hero, but I honestly think that her powers are just too impressive to be outweighed by her struggles to control them. In fact, I almost put her at number 1, but the top spot had to go to Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange started off as a character that might not have presented as much of a powerhouse, but over time he has proven himself to be the most valuable member that the Avengers have ever had. He is capable of bending time and space on command with adept precision and can detect threats from extreme distances in space and time before they even occur. And if you take issue with this number 1 placement, just think of the scale of the forces he's faced with within his own storylines. He has to protect the world from the likes of Dormammu, Nightmare, and Urthona, among many other godlike demons. But what really makes Doctor Strange the most powerful out of all the Avengers is that he doesn't need to contend with opposition on the plane of reality that they come to him in. He is able to view the future and decide on how he wants it to play out before changing the fabric of reality to control any outcome he's faced with. The only reason that I could imagine someone might keep him from the number 1 spot these days is that he's known to have been nerfed quite a bit in the last 20 years, but even today I'd still argue that his power set puts him in the top spot. At number 10 we have Captain America. I know it feels weird to have Cap in the 10th spot on any list about power, but remember who he's up against. Captain America's best trait is his unmatched leadership stat, which for superheroes is a really important angle to consider. But on a list about individual power, I'd say it only goes as far as who he's actually leading and ultimately fighting alongside. But without his strategic advantage, Captain America is still an extremely powerful Avenger and beats out plenty of other contenders that didn't make the list. The combination of his impressive fighting skill and his advanced strength levels is good enough to garner attention, but of course his vibranium shield is what really brings him to another level. Vibranium is a metal that actually absorbs all energy and contains it entirely. This means that whatever the shield is hit with, the metal itself will absorb the recoil almost entirely. Not to mention, it can pack a serious punch when it's thrown and will return to Steve's hand on command. This gives Cap a huge offensive and long-range advantage when he isn't showing off his massively impressive hand-to-hand combat skills. At number 9 is the one and only Spider-Man. It was tough to decide where to put Spidey on this list because he's so versatile, but he's also quite young and inexperienced. Well, at least he's supposed to be. But what really puts him at one ranking higher than the almighty Captain America are his Spidey senses and his healing factor. These two abilities really give Spidey the edge and help to define him as a more agile and crafty hero than many of the others on the list. Where Spider-Man might lack in sheer power, he makes up for in his adept precision and dexterity. And while he may not pack a huge punch in some of the more advanced combat situations that the Avengers face, he doesn't let anyone get the jump on him in any case, because he can always sense what's coming and has very quick reflexes to make the next move before his opponents even realize they've missed him. In other words, Spider-Man often plays the role of David while his opponents play the part of Goliath. Another thing that's important to note is that his suit upgrades allow him to gain huge strength boosts, expanding his power levels to a level that may never see its limit.
Number 8. Spider-Man. Peter Parker as Spider-Man has of course teamed up with the Avengers before, but Miles Morales as Spider-Man is a newer addition, not just in terms of the Avengers team, but also still relatively new in terms of him existing in 616. Miles Morales is originally a Spider-Man who hails from the Ultimate Comics line originating in Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. He was given a new home on Earth 616 after his world had been destroyed as a result of showing kindness to and sharing food with Molecule Man during the Secret Wars event. True story. Thank goodness for pocket cheeseburgers. Miles has a power set very similar to Peter's in many ways, but also has a few unique abilities of his own. He can shock his opponents with venom blasts and can sneak up on them with his spider camouflage, which he can use to appear invisible. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about even more newest additions to the Avengers we've seen in recent years, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Number 7. Valkyrie. Valkyrie is Jane Foster, who was originally known as Thor when she joined the Avengers team the first time around. Jane ended up becoming the new Thor after Thor Odinson, the original Thor, was deemed unworthy. As the new Mighty Thor, editorially referred to at times as Lady Thor, Jane joined the Avengers team in the all-new All Different Avengers series in 2015. Currently in the comics, Jane is no longer the Mighty Thor, but was welcomed into Asgardia by Odin, who gave her a new title and power set, making her a new Valkyrie. To clarify, I'm saying Asgardia because she was kind of like welcome to the whole world of Asgard, but she didn't go live on Asgard or anything specific like that. Currently, Valkyrie is the mantle that she uses. Being imbued with the spirit of Valkyrie Brunhilde gives Jane the strength and power set of an Asgardian warrior. In addition, there are specific powers that are also granted to Valkyries like herself. She can teleport, has death perception, and can see ghosts, in addition to being a super strong and capable fighter. Number 6. Starbrand. I kinda miss when Brandy was just like a little Starbrand baby. But of course, this is comics and heroes can't stay babies forever. In fact, they can't even stay a baby for more than a year apparently. Especially if they're joining the Avengers, which I kinda get. Technically, the young Starbrand, Baby Selby, later given the first name Brandy, was in the care of the Avengers. Not really specifically on the team, kinda sorta like their ward. But despite being one of the youngest heroes to ever be affiliated with that team, this little Starbrand also would often help the team out on missions, being so insanely powerful. Starbrand possesses the Starbrand, which grants her a great amount of basically cosmic power. She is capable of interstellar flight and flight in general, energy manipulation and projection, destruction, creating energy blasts, and technically should also be super durable and have some level of healing factor. The Starbrand's power is believed to be potentially infinite when it comes to their power levels, making Starbrand one of the most powerful members on the team, in baby form, child form, or young adult form as she currently is as of the end of issue 52 of the current 2018 Avengers series. Number 5. Ghost Rider. While Starbrand might have the greatest potential for power, and we aren't sure entirely what she's capable of just yet, Robbie Reyes is a bit more experienced when it comes to his powers. And even when he was less experienced, he actually accidentally killed one of the previous Starbrands, Kevin Connor, in Marvel Legacy. So for those reasons, I thought we should give him a bit of a boost when it comes to his ranking on this list. Robbie Reyes first appeared in the comic scene in 2014 in all-new Ghost Rider issue number 1. He is an all-new Ghost Rider, just like the series claims. During a street race gone wrong, Robbie was killed and ended up possessed by the ghost who haunted the car that he was driving, becoming the new Ghost Rider. He joined up with the Avengers recently in the comics, and I think he makes a great addition to the team. I personally love Robbie Reyes, so yeah, I'm here for it. Number 4. Winter Hulk. While Jennifer Walters as She-Hulk may have joined the Avengers long ago, first joining up back in the 80s, she has gone through a lot of changes since then. One recent and major one, which also returned her to her smaller, smarter, more playful and sassy, yet still very powerful form, happened recently in Avengers comics. For a brief time, She-Hulk, then known as just Hulk, ended up becoming Winter Hulk. Winter Hulk happened as a result of Jen allowing herself to be kidnapped by the Winter Guard of Russia to try and figure out what they were up to. What devious things are they planning? In the end, they attempted to mind wipe and brainwash Hulk to turn her into one of their agents. And they kinda succeeded. Although the process was interrupted, for a brief time Jen acted as their agent, Winter Hulk. However, as Winter Hulk, Jen still managed to fight against her programming, and alert her fellow Avengers when sent to attack Namor and Atlantis. In the end, Winter Hulk was forced to absorb a ton of radiation to protect the citizens of Atlantis. She managed to discharge the gamma radiation she had absorbed safely, and as a result was returned to her original form, ultimately deciding to retire from the Avengers team after these events and return to practicing law. And now we have a new She-Hulk series that I have heard nothing but good things about. I really need to get reading my first issue. Number 3. Phoenix. While Phoenix is definitely one of the most powerful superheroes to be on the Avengers team, her history with them is a bit more lengthy than you might initially think, which is why I ranked her a little bit lower on this list than I normally would. Phoenix herself was back on the original Avengers team, the prehistoric Avengers, or the Avengers of 1 million BC. This avatar for Phoenix was known as Firehair. However, Firehair only made her first appearance even in 2017 in the comics, so she's also kinda new in a way, even though she's super old. Does that make sense? Maya Lopez, aka Echo, is the current host of the Phoenix Force and the current Phoenix, who also finds herself on the Avengers team. Her being Phoenix is new, but her being on the Avengers team is not new. She rejoined the team in 2021 as Phoenix, which is quite new, like I said, but she actually was a member of the Avengers way back in 2005, when she was using the mantle of Ronin. Still, Maya being Phoenix and being part of the Avengers altogether is quite fresh right now, despite both the Phoenix Force's history with the prehistoric team and Maya's own history with the present day team. And of course, Phoenix is one of the most powerful entities in the entire Marvel universe. So despite her being kind of a new old combo thing, we have to show respect to the blazingly brilliant and powerful Maya Lopez, aka Echo, aka Phoenix, on this list. Number 2. Cable. Nathan Summers ended up joining the Avengers team at a time when Captain America was seeking to present a show of unity. Hence, Cable ended up being on the Avengers Unity division, which was meant to bring together Avengers and X-Men after events of Avengers vs. X-Men had created tension between the two superhero groups of Earth. Series-wise, the team was known as the Uncanny Avengers, with Cable joining up as early as issue number 4. Cable is an extremely powerful telepath and telekinetic due to him being the offspring of X-Men member Cyclops and his wife at the time, Mr. Sinister created clone of Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor. Despite Maddie being his birth mother, Jean has also been like a mother to Nate after she was implanted with the memories of basically raising him, making her kind of like his telepathically retcon mom, with Maddie becoming more like a surrogate mother in terms of her relationship with Nate, formerly known to her as Baby Christopher. Oh baby Christopher. Number 1. Avenger Prime. Avenger Prime is kinda like all of the Avengers merged together. At least, that's what the original version of this character was like. They made their first appearance in the 2013 Mighty Avengers series, but another character with that name also recently reappeared in the 2021 free comic book day Avengers and Hulk comic. They showed up in the Avengers portion of that double feature story comic. Here, Avengers Prime is the leader of the Deathlock Avengers forces, who basically stands guard at the God Quarry, seeking to watch, protect, and warn against major multiversal threats and potential chronal collapses. Presumably, this is some version of Avenger Prime that decided to stay omnipotent and bonded together. At least that's what I'm assuming. Some people are assuming different things. When we saw Avenger Prime last, or an alternate version of them if you will, they were created using a ritual which allowed the team of Mighty Avengers to bond together. Technically, Avenger Prime stands to be the most powerful of the Avengers, as they should be made up of one or more teams or rosters potentially combined together. Now, of course, some people believe that Avenger Prime is actually some sort of alternate version or some future version of Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, but we don't really know for sure yet. Whoever they are though, they definitely seem to have a lot of time, a lot of power, and a lot of resources on their hands, especially for being a shadowy figure.
Number 10. Mantis. A new addition to the Guardians team, Mantis went from being Ego's roommate in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to becoming an Avenger, even holding Thanos down while the rest of the team tried to take the gauntlet off. Now in the comics, Mantis had to endure quite a bit before becoming an Avenger. She made her first appearance in Avengers issue 112, The Lion God Lives. Mantis was trained as a child by alien priests, section of the Kree, who thought that she was destined to be the celestial Madonna. She was killing it in martial arts, hence the nickname Mantis. Now her real name is Brant, but Mantis sounds much more fun. No offense to all the Brants out there. Those priests enhanced her mind, giving her telepathic abilities, and on her 18th birthday she was given the gift of a lifetime, when her mind was wiped and she was instead given false memories of her childhood as an orphan in Vietnam, to experience a normal life. Because that's part of the celestial Madonna route. Nothing builds that Madonna power more than some time in Vietnam. Right? And in doing so, Mantis learned to hold it down on her own quite easily. Number 9. Dr. Druid. Anthony Ludgate entered Marvel Comics in Weird Wonder Tales issue 19. He's a bit of a smarty pants, some would say. I mean, he got a degree in psychology from Harvard and then became a psychiatrist. But that wasn't enough for Anthony. He wanted to study the ancient powers of his ancestral druids. So he was studying the occult on his off time. He finally met the ancient one who passed down a lot of tricks, and Anthony left and became Dr. Druid, assisting monster hunters, including Makari when they went against deviants. So this guy goes back quite far. He's also a little more dramatic than strange, some would say. In Avengers issue 294, he manipulated Captain America's mind so that he would be the replacement chairman. And this was right after Captain Marvel was injured. What a snake.
Number 8. Tigra. When Greer Nelson first came on the scene, she was just known as the Cat, and was given powers tied to her costume. But that all changed when she became Tigra, or Tigra, however you want to pronounce it. Mutating into a human-tiger hybrid in a ritual that bound her to the, quote, cat people, which while it may be a silly name, was a race of humanoid cats who were created in the Middle Ages, so cat people. Now before you laugh at her for looking silly, just know that in her tiger form, Tigra is granted some useful abilities. Her superhuman strength allows her to lift over 10 tons with her leg muscles, allowing her to perform a standing jump of 12 feet. She can run at speeds of around 70 miles per hour, has superhuman durability, agility, reflexes, and stamina, and as we all know, cats have heightened senses and like to knock things off of wherever you carefully place them. And as far as I know, the former is still the same with Tigra, whose senses are about 10 times that of a human's. Tigra's eyesight can sense the infrared portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, allowing her for night vision. She can more easily detect the movements of an opponent. Her hearing is so strong that she can detect a ball of tissue paper being dropped at a distance of 40 feet, just like every other cat, and her sense of smell is so developed she can selectively sort through odors just to track someone. Number 7. Juggernaut. The stepbrother of Charles Xavier, Cain Marko, started off on the wrong foot as a bully to his brother. So he already wasn't nice when he gained the powers of irresistible force embodiment. This basically means that once Cain begins to advance in a certain direction, it is virtually impossible to halt his movement. Tons of rocks and plasma discharge cannons have slowed his pace, but they cannot completely halt him. Only a few things have ever been able to stop Juggernaut. Thor's use of his God Blast is one of them. War Hulk with increased strength thanks to Apocalypse's grafting celestial tech to him, which allowed Hulk to increase his strength and stop the Juggernaut, is another. Kane gained this ability after bonding to the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Sidorak being an immensely powerful entity described as both a god and a demon. The bands also granted Kane with near limitless strength and stamina and gave him the ability to summon his mystical armor at a moment's notice. When Kane was the avatar of Sidorak, these powers were boosted to even greater heights, which is just a scary thought. Number 6. Ghost Rider. If there is one thing I have learned from my time on Earth so far, it would be that you never make deals with people who look like, sound like, or call themselves the devil. There are multiple instances of this happening in the backstory of stunt motorcyclist Johnny Blaze. His mother tried to make a deal with Mephisto that would stop Johnny becoming the spirit of vengeance thanks to a family curse, and that didn't go as planned. And then, Johnny tried to make a deal with the same demon to save his surrogate father, which also did not go as planned and did not save him at all. Johnny was cursed with the power of the spirit of vengeance that inhabits his body, turning him into the Ghost Rider. While the Ghost Rider is in control, Johnny Blaze only influences its decisions to an extent as he takes the back seat, quote unquote. Doctor Strange has stated Johnny Blaze is simply a mortal and acts as a built-in safety, limiting the power of the Ghost Rider. Doctor Strange has also stated that when the demon Zarathos takes possession of the Ghost Rider's power are, for most intents and purposes, boundless and quote unquote godlike. Those powers include superhuman strength with potential limitlessness, superhuman stamina, superhuman immunity to basically all earthly physical damage, superhuman agility, regenerative healing, supernatural awareness, hellfire manipulation including infusion, projection, and constructs, firestorms, sin and soul manipulation, hell cycle symbiosis, dimensional travel, demon magic, mystical fiery chain projection, size alteration, and his key ability, the penance stare, causing any individual who stares into his eyes to see and feel every bit of pain they have ever inflicted on anyone in their entire lifetime for all eternity. Number 5. Magic. Ileana Rasputina is a mutant sorceress who rules the demonic realm known as Limbo. She was taken to Limbo by Belasco, and in the few seconds that passed on Earth, Ileana aged years in Limbo. Time she spent mastering different dark arts. Magic also exhibited the mutant ability to mentally control stepping discs that are connected to Limbo and allow her and others to teleport across interstellar distances, space, and time. She joined the New Mutants and she has gone on to eventually join the ranks of the X-Men, and has been mentored by Doctor Strange, advancing her magical abilities even further, which is quite a statement as she is the Sorcerer Supreme in her Limbo dimension, having been taught black magic by Belasco and white magic from an alternate Aurora Monroe. And she was among those who were considered for becoming the new Sorcerer Supreme of Earth 616. Number 4. Dr. Voodoo. Jericho Drum is the master practitioner of voodoo, white magic, according to the Book of Vishanti, and he has been stated as one of the most powerful mystic practitioners on the planet. Which is why it makes sense that he was the one to actually become the new Sorcerer Supreme for a while in Doctor Strange's place after the Eye of Agamotto deemed that he possesses a pure heart and a clean soul. Now his main magical ability allows him to interact with spirits for a number of different effects. He can summon skeletons, the spirits of the dead, and manipulate zombies with his necromancy. He can manipulate biological forces like animals and trees, as well as heal others, and he has even removed Frank Castle's mouth one time, which was pretty freaky. He has a degree of pyrokinesis, can control a voodoo smoke/mist, and can manipulate and control people's souls. Now that is all on top of the normal mystical abilities he possesses through spells that were increased in potential when he was trained by Doctor Strange and when he became Sorcerer Supreme. Number 3. Doctor Doom. Victor Von Doom has been a staple villain in the worlds of Marvel Comics since 1962. But there is more to this incredibly powerful, super intelligent, and charismatic Latverian monarch. He has helped the forces of good on several occasions, even if it was for selfish ends, and has recently reformed and even become a hero. He held the power cosmic and the power of the Beyonder twice, becoming God King of Battleworld the second time. He is an incredibly capable character. Dr. Victor Von Doom was introduced to magic by his mother, but he expanded his knowledge by going through time and training with characters like Morgana Le Fay. He is proved capable of mystical blasts, force fields, ensnaring, banishing, and portals, summoning entities and demonic creatures, casting and reversing spells, teleportation, dimensional travel, healing of himself and others, time travel, power absorption, elemental manipulation, telekinesis, as well as power nullification. He also hones psionic abilities such as mind transference, hypnotism, and technopathy. He has been considered for the role of Sorcerer Supreme and is just one of the best villains Marvel has ever created. Number 2. Doctor Strange. Dr. Stephen Strange. His magical feats are almost unmatched by any other. He is among the most adept magic user in the multiverse and has shown it many times. When he first came on the scene, and for a long while, he was so insanely powerful that he was capable of doing pretty much anything he wanted. It got to the point that Marvel even decided to depower him. He has passed a test in which he accepted death, which meant he now no longer ages and can only be de-lifed by external means, meaning he is essentially immortal. His energy blasts are capable of destroying moons and planets. You remember when I listed all the things Dr. Doom can do? Well, Strange can do all of them, probably better, and more. He has mastered the words of the Black Priest, allowing him to distort reality. He frequently calls on the divine empowerment and extra-dimensional energy of mystical and non-mystical beings in multiple dimensions to power his spells, and he can use black magic like taking the power of another entity by force of will. But he has stopped using that kind of magic, so it's whatever. He is the defender of reality and has put together so many different crazy teams, including this one. Number 1. Kang the Conqueror. Nathaniel Richards was born on the 30th century Earth of Reality 6311, where humanity never went into the Dark Ages. In this reality, after centuries of technological advancement and war, peace was finally brought to the Earth by a time traveler from Earth 616, also named Nathaniel Richards, known as the legendary Benefactor. Now, the Nathaniel Richards born to the 6311 reality is said to be a descendant of the Benefactor through Reed Richards, although he may be descended from Dr. Doom. So already we're off to a confusing start, and that's before we even get into the seemingly endless versions of him by different names and from different realities that are littered throughout Marvel Comics and appear in the 616 reality. Basically, after landing in the 40th century, Nathaniel reinvented himself as Kang the Conqueror, conquering the Earth, then the galaxy, and then setting his sight on other times and realities. Apart from his advanced physiology and exceptional mind, Kang's battle armor is produced from a rare synthetic alloy from the 40th century and responds to his subconscious thoughts. It grants him abilities including enhanced strength, durability withstanding even a nuclear strike at point-blank range, anti-gravity, video communication, time travel, concussive bolts, summoning any number of weapons which are transported to him through the time stream instantly, electric shocks, hover pads, survival kits, and body transference. He is an Avengers level threat and easily takes any of the top spots on this list.